latest sports shows, updates, and interviews. The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team WSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Of the Sit Down with Malik Wright / State of the Jungle on the Sit Down with Malik Wright's YouTube channel. It is our NFL Draft annual coverage as we go live from our TWSN studios, and we'll be watching the draft alongside with you guys. We will be talking this thing through, having the conversation, having a bit fun. I'm excited for it. Got Daniel joining me, obviously live as always. We got our guy, our TWSN website manager, Mike O'Hara. If you remember him, he was the guy that joined us for the Combine coverage. He was the guy that joined us for the Super Bowl coverage. It's been a while. We haven't seen Mike in a month, but Mike is back joining us live, ready to get his heart broken if the Bengals were to select someone that he didn't want the Bengals to select at 17. But we're excited to be here. We're excited to talk things through. We got Jimmy on the 1 2s, Marissa in the studio. So it is going to be a good night, boys. So far, this draft, I got to be honest with you, has been nuts.
Very.
Some things kind of shocked me. The Jaguars trading up for Travis Hunter seemed to shock a lot of people, but that was the worst kept secret an hour before the draft. Tyler Booker just went to the Dallas Cowboys. There were talks about him because he tested so poorly. You had the nerd saying the RAS score was so terrible. Tyler Booker might fall to the second round. Wrong. Guy doesn't make the pick 15. His film was elite. His play was elite. He goes to pick 12 at the Dallas Cowboys. Ted McMillan was a shocker to me, honestly. But when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it makes sense. But a lot of these guys that people were slandering and talking down on kind of going off the board here. I think that's the part that's a little bit shocking. I mean, I think the most shocking pick so far maybe might be what's his face? Mikael Williams just going to the 49ers. I felt like the 49ers could have went a host of a lot of different places, but they decided to go with Mikael Williams. A lot of the targets that we wanted the Bengals to target, a lot of the players are still actually on the board. It's funny. This board is kind of shaping up very similar to our mock drafts, our War Room mock drafts that we did the last couple of weeks. But Daniel, what are your thoughts so far on the draft?
Yeah, this is, man, I'm juiced up. I'm pumped up, and we appreciate everybody tuning in the comment section. Once again, as we approach this, drop down your comments, right? Drop down your predictions, drop down your guys' thoughts. Malik, the first thing that I want to discuss, and just my early takeaway is, this draft is about filling a need and finding the right fit, right? A perfect example of that is Colston Loveland, right? When you look at all the mock drafts, when you look at everything about Colston Loveland, he wasn't even close to being mocked up to number 10 on most of these mock drafts. But when you think about it, right, new head coach Ben Johnson loves to use that tight end with the Sam Laporta like he did in Detroit. They're building their offense with Caleb Williams. They just invested in the interior offensive line. These are picks that may sound crazy, but when you look at a pure talent fit, it works. And then there's some other picks like, you know, the Kelvin Banks pick is an interesting one, right? It's maybe, hey, he probably wasn't the best player on the board, but once again, he fills a need for their team. A team like the New Orleans Saints, they're looking a year in advance, right? They're not looking to compete now. So a team like, you know, the New Orleans Saints, I thought it was interesting, but I understand it, right? You build you got Fuaga on one side of your offensive line. You got Kelvin Banks now, and you're basically saying, hey, we're going to parade for the number 1 overall pick next year. And that's pretty much what it looks like. But all around, man, as we look at this board, Malik, there's a lot of damn good players, guys, still left for the Cincinnati Bengals. So very fun draft, I would say, so far. Very, very exciting, and a lot of good players still left on the board.
You know, Mike, and I want to get you in here as well. You know, this draft is shaping up to be sort of what we kind of expected. I'm shocked that Mikael Williams goes before Jalen Walker. Feels like the last couple of days, Jalen Walker has been kind of sliding, and people haven't been as high on him. The Jahad Campbell slide is not shocking to me. I sort of expected that, as you know, when you think about the shoulder injury. But Mike, what are your thoughts so far on this draft?
I'm just happy to be vindicated about Teteroa McMillan. The nonsense, the slander, Matthew Golden, wide receiver 1 in the class, obviously not counting Travis Hunter. That's a whole nother story. The Jags making that splashy trade to go up and get him. I do think the Browns came out pretty squarely on top of that one, just in terms of their franchise trajectory and setting up for the future. But going back to Tet there, or T-Mac as he prefers to be called, I think he's the clear wide receiver 1 outside of Hunter in this draft. I mean, just what he can do on the outside, his presence as a true X receiver. I mean, there's no one even remotely close to him in this draft class when it comes to what he can do in contested catch situations. And I really do believe that we saw what Dave Canales did in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, and he did not have that sort of weapons arsenal at his disposal last year in Carolina. Xavier Legette showed some flashes. Deontay Johnson was solid before things went completely off the rails, whatever went down there. But I truly believe this is the type of coach, offensive-minded coach, who can get the most out of a talent like McMillan. And I mean, they found some newfound hope in Bryce Young down the stretch last year. So I think we could see a more than a semi-competent offense in Carolina this year. So without talking too badly on Matthew Golden here, just altogether, that's a pick that I was excited to see, just to see him come off the board as the top receiver.
You know, we're starting to see a run on some defensive linemen, obviously, and stuff like that. Who do we think the Dolphins go here?
They need offensive line and they need defensive line. When you look at both their guys, you know, just straight up look at their depth charts. The defensive line is absolutely, you know, they got 3 interior defensive linemen on their roster. So I would probably say defensive line. They could end up going cornerback. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey, you know, potentially could be on the outs. I doubt that they go Jahdae Barron here. If I had to put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Walter Nolan goes to the Dolphins.
I mean, I think they need a defensive tackle. Obviously, they lost Christian Wilkins a couple years ago.
And Calais Campbell.
So I you know, I'm right there with you. Hey, Jimmy, we can move on over to and see who the pick is for the people. You know, there it is.
Wow.
The Miami Dolphins draft Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle.
I mean,
You know, makes sense for a lot of reasons.
You can't be too shocked. I mean, I really do think they were hoping that Tyler Booker would be there. But both sides of the ball, interior was a massive need in the trenches. I can't even name off the top of my head who their starting offensive guards are, but I know it's an absolute shambles. And they needed help everywhere. I thought that they might be looking at Will Johnson here as well, like you brought up, Daniel. I mean, they've got right now, I think they're prepared to roll out Storm Duck alongside Jalen Ramsey next season, and Ramsey's on the wrong side of 30. So this is a team. I talked about it a couple of days ago.
I just want to say one thing. Sorry to cut you off, Mike.
No worries.
While we're in this drive, everyone that's in the stream, we really appreciate you guys. If you guys give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. I do realize there are a lot of people out there that are kind of leaking the picks before they happen. I'm just going to ask, for the sake of people that are watching this show live, I'm getting picks as they happen to. You know, I'm just trying to go about it a little bit different this year. I don't want to take the enthusiasm out of the draft for people. So for those of you that are watching live, if you guys can just kind of hold on to those comments and, you know, in telling people who the pick is, even if you have good intel, or even if that you see people are leaking it on social media, let's just hold on before we announce it. I just don't want to ruin it for other people. So that's just my thoughts. Mike, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, all I was saying is I think that this is a team on the cusp of a full-blown rebuild.
Yeah.
And I really don't know if adding Kenneth Grant's going to be the piece in addition to what they already have on the roster that is going to make this a team that's capable of putting together a 9 to 10 win season that kind of tells the front office that maybe we can hold on to this thing and try and contend for another year or two before we scrap everything. But we'll just have to see. I mean, obviously Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill, 2 of the aging star names on this roster, brought up in trade talks. Obviously the GM dismissed those trade talks when it came to Tyreek Hill, but we'll see. I do really think that a rebuild is in this team's very, very near future. A lot of fun offensive weapons, but just not the pieces there.
Yeah, no. Oh, I want to talk about what the Browns did earlier in the draft before we jump to some Bengals talk here, because the board is shaping up very nicely for the Bengals. The Bengals pick here in the next couple of picks. The Colts pick is in. We'll wait for the commissioner to obviously get up on there, and we'll discuss that pick, which it seems like it's going to be happening. What are your thoughts on who you think well, let's talk about that now. We'll come back to the Browns. Daniel, what are your thoughts on what the Colts should do here?
If I had to guess, Colts, I think they're probably going to go Warren, but I don't know if that's smart. I would probably end up going maybe corner, but I wouldn't. Wow.
Tyler Warren. I want to know, did you get tipped off already? Are you tipped off already? Did you just guess that?
No, I think this was honestly one of the most mocked ones.
Yeah.
And like I understand the fit totally. And for me, I guess the fit lines up with the offense you're trying to roll out, whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. I like it, right? It's a clear need. You look at their tight end room, it is absolutely nothing. I love the wide receivers that they have. So you're trying to build the offense. Is his best player available? Maybe in their eyes. He's a weapon. So I think this is a very solid pick.
So when we talk about some of the guys that are kind of currently off the board, right? We talk about Mason Graham. We talk about the Michael Williams. Who else is off the board from a defensive line standpoint? Kenneth Grant is off the board. The board is shaping up very, very well for the Bengals with names like Jalen Walker, Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan still on the board as of right now. There are going to be some guys the Bengals can genuinely pick from. Listen, the Bengals have been searching for game changers on the defensive line for the last few years. Who do we think? Let's talk about the Bengals for a second.
Yep.
Who do we think the Bengals should select here at 17? For months and months, we've discussed it, we've debated it, we've talked it through. Who do you think the Bengals should pick? Who do you think they will pick at 17? Mike, let's go with you first, and we're going to go to Daniel.
I think it should be Mike Green. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because we do have Atlanta on the clock, and they're essentially a lock to take an edge rusher here.
Yeah.
I do think it should be Mike Green. I know that there's some questions about Mike Green not fitting the Bengals' prototypical size when it comes to an edge rusher, but I mean the 17 sacks. Hard to ignore that sort of production, and he put out good tape against the Ohio State Buckeyes, a truly high-end opponent, even before Josh Simmons went down. But it's once again kind of going back to it. It's hard to ignore that level of production from an edge rusher there. I do think that they will go Walter Nolan, partially just because of just reading into who the Bengals may be targeting and the fact that I really don't have faith that Mike Green makes it past the Atlanta Falcons here. I think that Terry Fontenot in the front office in Atlanta are going to agree with me in the sense that level of production is just too hard to pass up. So we'll just have to see where the board shakes out. But I'm pretty confident we're going to address the defensive line here. I know some people have been talking about other positions, potentially grabbing a guard and Gray Zabel. That was one that flared up today, but I do think it'll be adding onto the front seven.
Daniel.
Yeah, this is fun. Every mock draft that we've done kind of lines up, and even more so right now. There's so many options on the board. Defensive line, obviously, when you look at how the Bengals have typically drafted, whether it's, hey, go with the strength of the class, it is on the defensive line right now. So my immediate thought, it still goes back to, hey, I want a game changer, and I want a guy who has the pass rushing upside, right? I understand, everything going around about, the Bengals defensive line, coach Montgomery saying, hey, stop the run and earn the right to rush the passer. I totally agree with that. I just think when I look at this room and when I look at how you win in the NFL, you win by rushing the quarterback. You win. I look at the Tampa Bay Super Bowl against, the Kansas City Chiefs. You win with a front four that can get to the quarterback. And when I look at this board, it is James Pierce or Walter Nolan. And I understand the Walter Nolan conversation. I'm happy with either one of those. And if I had to guess what they will end up doing, if Walter Nolan's on the board, I'd probably lean Walter Nolan, but I'm just going to stake my claim right now. I think that James Pierce is the guy that I don't know if I would potentially pass up. But like I said, there's a ton of talent on the board. I would entertain a trade back, but at the same time, you could be getting too cute if you have guys you're staring at the face saying, hey, We love James Pierce. We love Walter Nolan. We love Shamar Stewart. I think that there's guys on the board right now that could change your defensive line. That's where I would go. When I look at the rest of these guys real quick, Malachi Starks, I think this is, at this point, no safety's gone yet. I think this is a little too rich for him. I like the Mike Green. I don't know if the Bengals will end up going there, but I'm with you. You have to address the defensive line with the board looking at you like this. How often do you get guys? I can count at least 3, 4 of these guys. I say, hey, they come in and they are immediately a freak on this defensive line. I'm going defensive line. If I had to stake my claim, I would go James Pierce Jr.
You're saying that for the Atlanta Falcons?
The Bengals.
Okay.
The Bengals.
So what do you think? What do you think the Falcons do here with their pick?
Mike Green's interesting. I wonder if they go Jalen Walker, right? The Georgia Atlanta connection. I'm very confident they go pass rusher. I don't know. They could go a lot of these guys. Shamar Stewart, they could be, absolutely enamored with his intangibles. I just think that they're a team, though, that is looking to compete soon. And I think that they're going to go with one of these guys who have had production, whether it's, Mike Green, James Pierce, Donovan Ezeraku. I think they're going to look for that immediate production, and those would be the guys that I would try to pencil in for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting. You think about where the Falcons will go. I think a name we didn't mention really is Jalen Walker.
Mm-hmm.
That is a guy that obviously makes a lot of sense. They could always do what they did as starting last year and shock the entire world and draft a quarterback named Shedeur Sanders, right? Or maybe there's a trade back scenario here. If they're down to 1 minute and 33 seconds left, 30 seconds left on the clock, where are the Falcons going to go with this pick? Where are the Falcons going to go with this pick? Well, one thing's for sure is I thought that they would be drafting a defensive lineman for sure. I really believed in my heart that the Falcons would be drafting a defensive lineman. We'll see what happens, but they're getting down to the wire. It seems like they don't even know what they're doing. It
wouldn't shock me.
I really thought the Falcons would have had this pick in by now. I feel like when you look at you got to wonder, is it a trade back scenario? Is there a team calling the Atlanta Falcons right now? By the way, while we're on that point, I think if you trade a pick, to a team, whatever the time is on the clock, it should stay that time on the clock. If it takes you 10 minutes to put a trade in, then I don't know what to tell you, but it just prolongs the draft process. But I don't know. We're down to 30 seconds. When's the last time we seen a team make a selection this late in the clock?
Yeah.
Is there a trade brewing?
I don't know if there's a trade. Malik, I think that they're probably just looking at their board and saying, hey, we know we want to go pass rusher. If I had to bet, I don't think that they know who they were going to take leading into this, right? They probably had their board of, hey, we got Shamar, we got Mike Green, we got James Pierce Jr. I don't know who we're going with. And if I had to guess, that's probably what they were looking at. I'd be curious to see if they go anywhere else.
The pick is in, so they are making the pick. Okay.
Do you think it was that it had anything to do with the fact that they weren't prepared for Jalen Walker to be there for him?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, he is one of those game-changing guys that when we talk about, the Falcons, I think he makes a lot of sense. Keep him in Georgia, but we'll see what sort of happens with that. Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I will tell you is Walter Nolan, as of now, is still on the board. Mike Green of now is still on the board.
Interesting.
So, Shamar Stewart is still on the board. So that should tell you a lot right now. So we'll see what happens. I mean, again, this draft could not, for the Bengals' perspective, in terms of pass rushers, this draft could not have shaped up any better for them. It couldn't have shaped up any better. But I want to talk a little bit about what I would like the Bengals to do. I think that the Bengals, Walter Nolan, assuming he is not picked here by the Arizona Cardinals, I think that getting a game-changing defensive tackle could really do you some well. The reason why I say that is because when I look at it, they've been trying so hard to address an interior pass rusher on the defensive line. I agree with Daniel at this point too. I would consider a trade back. You're getting flamed in the comment section right now.
Me?
Somebody said I'm working you too hard. You need a haircut.
My hair, that's actually funny. I need to get a haircut.
But you can tell them I don't work them too hard. I don't work them too hard. But no, I look at it and I say Walter Nolan is a guy that's staring you right in the face. It's a position you've tried to address the last couple of years. You got TJ Slatton. You got guys like Chris Jenkins Jr. You brought back BJ Hill. So again, they kind of slowed down the process for you to actually have to, address position if you didn't want to. Let's say if the board didn't fall the way you wanted to, but it's falling that way. guy like Walter Nolan's still on the board, and you got to ask yourself. And here's the question I always ask myself: if you draft Walter Nolan, does he provide you something different than any of those other guys do in that room? To me, I think Walter Nolan by far and away can wind up being the best interior pass rusher of this draft. The guy wants to be great. The guy wants to play at a high level. And I think that this pick makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. If you want to take the character concerns of a guy like Mike Green, sure, this is a spot that you can consider. Understand that does come with some off the field character concerns, but are you willing to overlook that? If you are willing to overlook that and you get the guy's head on straight, so to speak, man, it's hard. He put up 17 and a half sacks this past year at Marshall, right? That is hard. That is hard play to sort of replicate. And for me, when I look at a guy like Mike Green, I think he's a true difference maker. Now, you always have the fascinating case of a guy like Shamar Stewart. Listen, here's what I'll say. Every single draft, somebody is a winner and somebody is a loser. Somebody reads too much into measurables and how you test from an athletic profile, but I still believe production is king. You know, when you asked him a question at the combine, Daniel, regarding his sack production. You know what he said? He said, I believe production is overrated. I don't believe production is overrated. I think production is the means of winning and losing in the National Football League. And so for me, I'd like to see that improve. I don't know. Daniel, what are your thoughts on if the conversation came down to a Shamar Stewart or a Walter Nolan or a Mike Green? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm totally of the belief that production is king. I can understand the Shamar Stewart hype. I get it. The size, the athleticism, and when you watch the tape, he does pop on tape, whether it is in the run game or whether it is blowing up, Will Campbell. He did that in the run game. I'm just at the point for the Cincinnati Bengals, man. I'm looking at this, and maybe I'm being a little selfish and a little greedy here, saying, hey, I'm trying to compete now. I'm trying to field my best team now. And
one thing I want to touch on, somebody saying the audio is out of sync. Guys, we tested it before we went live, and it was fine. One thing I would say is try to close your YouTube app and then load it back in. And then we'll see what happens. But we won't be restarting the live. If it's wonky, then it's just what we're gonna have to do, unfortunately, and we apologize. But Dan, continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. I that's where I'm at with this, man. I want production. And when I look at these guys, especially with the way that the board is shaping up, if we want to test out one of these intangible guys, trade back then a little bit. But when you look at this, there's too many guys on the board right now that have had a production. Walter Nolan, James Pierce Jr., Mike Green. I'm not a fan of going Shamar Stewart over these guys. I'm just not. Like I said, those guys have proven it. And these guys are on the board. They step in immediately, and you can pair them up with Trey Hendrickson. They may not be the biggest 260-pound defensive ends, but I would just be frustrated if I see that production go off. I'm losing it when it's right here in front of me. This isn't just a mock draft. The draft is here, and these guys are on the board. I would be a little frustrated, especially if a guy like Walter Nolan as well is still on the board. With the production he had from the interior, the potential he gives you as your potential interior pass rusher, your interior disruptor, I would be very frustrated if they took a Shamar Stewart over Walter Nolan, over James Pierce. But we will see. So
yeah, we talked about it earlier, Daniel. I'm glad he ran a good 3-cone drill. I'm glad he had a good broad jump. But the production speaks for itself. And I know you can make excuses for like what his role was at Texas A&M, but I mean, I don't know. It's just at the end of the day, production is king. I'd rather see them go after someone. I made the case earlier for Mike Green. We'll see. Potentially one of those names comes off the board here at 16. But yeah, I think the Bengals fan base would be pretty outspoken if the pick is Shamar Stewart.
Yeah. I think production still matters in this league. Daniel, thoughts?
Yeah, man. I just, like I said, when we're looking at this and when we look at the rest of this board, this is it's a fun board to look at, and this is a very talented defensive, guys that we got here, right? Guys that we didn't even touch on. Will Johnson still on the board, potential lockdown corner. Jahad Campbell's on the board, the best linebacker in this class. Jahdae Barron, like there are a ton of talented defensive players. And just to look at if they were to go with the Shamar Stewart, like I just can't fully get behind it. If he were to be the pick, okay, we'll figure it out. But these guys are on the board. It's very rare, especially at pick 17, that you have your pick of pretty much the entire litter of these defensive guys, barring what the Arizona Cardinals do here. But man, like I said, Walter Nolan, I think, would be a slam dunk pick. James Pierce Jr. would be a slam dunk pick.
Wow.
It's very rare that you have this group of defensive players on the board.
Do you think they begin to entertain a trade back here?
Potentially.
No, I think they're making the all the reports are coming in. Walter Nolan's off the board.
Wow.
The Cardinals do it. There was one report that came in from someone that I know that said Will Johnson actually was the pick here, but Walter Nolan is the pick. And again, Cincinnati keeps getting crushed from their dream of finally fixing the interior of the defensive line. Now you're squarely at a spot where edge is staring at you in the face. Do you go Shamar Stewart? Do you go Mike Green? What do you do? What do the Bengals do? Would you trade back?
I'd entertain it at this point right now.
I would too.
I would. And when we look at this, guys, like the guys on the board, and that is a gut punch here for Walter Nolan. It's a smart pick for the Cardinals, build the defensive line. But when we discuss it, guys, I think James Pierce Jr., Shamar Stewart, Donovan Ezaraku, and Mike Green, you got 4 pass rushers that I look at and say, hey, those guys can be franchise pass rushers. I would entertain a trade down to the Broncos at 20. I would entertain a trade down to the Chargers at 22. That's what I would do. If nobody's biting on it, all right, then you have your pick of one of these pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
But man, if I look at it right now, James Pierce Jr., he's the one that I'm staring at. And like I said, the production's there, but I would totally entertain a trade down.
So you look at some of the names that are still available for the Bengals if they were to go defense, right? You look at Mike Green, Jahad Campbell, Derek Harmon, Nick.
Derek Harmon's another one.
Yeah, I know you know that he's some injury concerns. You got Malachi Starks. Will Johnson is still on the board here. Will the Bengals shock us all and do something that we all didn't really expect? But I think we can all agree, Will Johnson is a difference maker at a cornerback spot. He probably could turn into one of the best cornerbacks of this draft class, if not the best. Will they go here? It's going to be very interesting to see what the Cincinnati Bengals do, but they are on the clock. They're on the clock. Hey, let's get some last minute predictions. Yep. Mike, where will the Bengals go?
I'm gonna hold firm. Go with Mike Green.
Hold firm.
It doesn't. I think I'm just wish casting at this point, but I'm gonna hold firm.
Yeah, I'm looking. James Pierce Jr. is my pick, and that's where I would go. I think at this, give me a pass rusher, give me James Pierce Jr. It opens up, the rest of the draft. You go into your offensive line round 2. You could go cornerback round 2. You could figure it out. I like Will Johnson. I like some of these other guys. It is for me. It is James Pierce Jr. That's the pass rusher I'd want.
Here's how I feel.
Yeah.
If you're a Bengals team fan. If you're going to seriously consider Shamar Stewart here, I would trade back.
Yeah.
Because I still think he'd be here. I mean, what are you trading back? How many spots? You able to grab more assets? I don't think any other team is going to jump the gun and draft him like the Bengals might. But it's just going to be interesting to see what they do here. I have no idea what's going to happen. And even if I did, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I'm not. This is true. This is true.
But listen, because I still think even if you're talking about Jahad Campbell, I think you trade back, you still get Jahad Campbell.
Yep.
I think if you're talking about Shamar Stewart, you trade back, you still get Shamar Stewart.
Yep.
I think if you're talking about James Pierce Jr., you trade back, you probably still get James Pierce Jr. The only person that you might not get is a Mike Green.
Yeah.
That's the God's honest truth.
Pick up the phone, Duke. Pick up the phone. That's what I would do, man.
See what happens. But if you want a prospect that is falling right into your lap, maybe Will Johnson. If we're talking about best player available right now.
Yeah.
Right. If we always talk about best player available, like there's best player, there's drafting for need. And then there's best player available. The best player available right now is Will Johnson.
Probably, yeah.
And he fits the sad thing. I think the 2 players that fit what the Bengals want is James Pierce Jr. and Will Johnson. Those 2 big name schools. Will Johnson played in the national championship. We know they love that. He's a younger prospect. He was a top 10, projected guy. The pick is in. Man, I'm curious. I'm excited. I don't know. And we go commercial break here.
Every single time the Bengals pick, they always go to commercial, don't they?
Yeah. There's a lot of good guys on the board. I think they're gonna end up with somebody good. I hope so. And this guy, this is gonna be a cornerstone of your defense, man. And we know they love these younger athletes. I want a 5-star athlete. I want a guy who, man.
So you want Shamar Stewart?
No, I want a guy who had production as well. Oh, don't tell me. Or you can do whatever you want, but oh no, I don't like that. I don't like that.
With the 17th overall pick, of the 2025 draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select the name that has been talked about so much today. The name that's been talked about so much today. The one that we just said we should trade back for. The Bengals do it.
Wow.
Shamar Stewart is a Bengal.
Wow. All right.
Shamar Stewart is a Cincinnati Bengal. Shamar Stewart is a Bengal. Listen, we can sit up here and we can talk about the negatives.
Yeah.
One thing I could talk about is the positives. Let's talk about the positive. I want to be positive right now. They had a need a pass rush. They get it. There's pass rush in the department of, hey, you know what? Getting sacks, and there's pass rush of being an absolute disruptor. The Bengals get it with Shamar Stewart, who's been an absolute disruptor. He said he thought that productivity was overrated. I disagree. But if you're talking about a guy that can win off the line of scrimmage, that has a deep bag and pass rush moves, it is Shamar Stewart. And they say his traits graded out quite similarly to Myles Garrett, but the production was not that of a Myles Garrett. And Shamar Stewart is a Cincinnati Bengal. Marissa, clip it. Let's put it up there. Let's get initial thoughts.
Yeah, man. Real quick before you go, Mike, I think for me, this reaffirms everything we kind of know about the Bengals. They didn't end up changing their stripes about, going with a smaller edge rusher. They went with what they normally go with, right? You look at their lineage of defensive linemen. It is these big guys. It is these 260-pound guys, 6'5". He fits what they want. And what the defensive line coach said, stop the run first, earn the right to rush the passer. Shamar Stewart can do that for you. When I watched him, like I said, the biggest negative is he didn't really know what to do with his hands. Didn't really have, good hand usage. But at the end of the day, when you turn on the tape, who's the dude that pops? Shamar Stewart pops. He does. And you watch him up against Will Campbell. In the past game, he didn't look great, but there are multiple reps. He's blowing offensive linemen off the ball. He's blowing offensive linemen on their ass. So if the Bengals fans want to get excited for this pick, I think you immediately look at, say, hey, Trey Henderson is the star pass rusher on the opposite side, and Shamar Stewart is an athletic freak from day one. You slot him in right away as your starting edge rusher, and you hope that he develops. But like I said, I think it's a little frustrating to see the production go off, the stay on the board. But Shamar Stewart popped on film, and they got their edge rusher of the future. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pour myself a cup full of copium. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
That's not the pick that I wanted.
Yeah.
I talked about it earlier in the show. I'm glad he had a good broad jump. He's athletic. That checks out for what the Bengals typically look for in their first round draft picks. You talk about the size, just having the traits. In this spot, I would have much preferred Mike Green or a trade back to pick up an extra pick or two and still grab a quality pass rusher in the first round. Maybe go on the inside with someone like Derek Harmon. I know he's been connected to the Bengals in the days, weeks leading up to the draft. So, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't like the pick whatsoever. We'll see. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know exactly how this is going to pan out, but it's not the pick I was hoping for. And it's looking like a very real possibility that we could leave another Bengals draft class with a disappointing pass rusher.
Yeah, man. And I think all around, that's kind of that's the sentiment here. And that's the story that's written so far is you had your pick of a lot of these defense linemen. Obviously, Walter Nolan was not on the board, but you had your pick of everybody pretty much. Malachi Starks, the best safety. Nicky Minwari, the best second best safety. Jihad Campbell, the best linebacker. James Pierce Jr., Mike Green, the two most productive guys in college football. And you went with a traits guy who was productive, stopping the run. That's what the Bengals chose. And the Bengals are looking at this saying, hey, we know what we know, and we're going about it the way we've gone about it. And they get one of the best athletes in this entire class. So I'm not shocked they went pass rusher, and Shamar Stewart, we'll see how it pans out. I just hope that Al Golden has a plan for him, right? And I think whether it's, hey, maybe he's not staying on the outside the entire time. Maybe you are having him be your starting, pass rusher from the interior from day one. Maybe that's your plan, right? If we talk about a Walter Nolan from the interior, maybe we say Shamar Stewart, you're 275 pounds, second and long, third and long. We're kicking you inside and we're having you rush the passer. If that's the plan, Al Golden, I'm going to trust you there. Like I said, I wish it was a James Pierce Jr. potentially, but let's see what they have cooked up for him. And you hope that he can be from day one. I'd be very confident that they're going to slot him in from the interior as well as the edge. And this is their.
Listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't mind the pick that much. I have a serious issue with the lack of production, but if I'm being completely honest with you, I think people saying he's Miles Murphy again. I don't agree with that.
No,
I don't agree with that. I think he gets off the ball a lot quicker. I think he is extremely disruptive. I think I do have an issue with the production, with just getting, he's this guy that can set the edge. It's the guy that can stop the run. Let's talk about the positives, right? Because we can bag here, but national media, a lot of people feel very good about this pick. My guy Trevor Sikkema, PFF, he loves this pick. For the Cincinnati Bengals. I like the pick. I think that he is a disruptor. I think if Al Golden can unlock and actually get him to not get overexcited. He talked about how the one thing he's working on is when he actually gets the quarterback in his grasp of just being able to just settle himself down, because he gets like a kid in a candy store. He gets extremely excited, and sometimes he overshoots. And you see a lot of that on the film.
Yes.
You see a lot of him going after the quarterback, getting super excited and maybe just over pursuing a little bit. But outside of that, I mean, I think this is where we can really talk about the analysis behind it, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I do see when you turn on the tape, don't look at the production. When you turn on the tape and you talk about a guy that consistently gets off the ball, guy that's consistently in the backfield, that is Shamar Stewart. That's not me selling you guys bullshit.
Yeah.
I would have gone somewhere different, but I understand the pick. At his best, you hope that he turns into a guy, right, that can finish those sacks. But you know who also at one point in time used to over pursue a little bit? Trey Hendrickson used to.
Yep.
He used to a little bit. And I'm not saying Shamar Stewart's Trey Hendrickson, but his get off on the ball is so fast. His pass rush win rate is so dynamic. I understand the pick, but you're banking on the room for growth there. You're banking on, holy shit, this guy is going to be settling as a pass rusher. This guy is going to make the tackles. His issue isn't getting off the line of scrimmage.
No.
His issue isn't being able to beat blocks. He does that at an elite rate. His issue is actually finishing.
Yep.
You know who also he reminds me of? We talked about it yesterday. Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary is a disruptor. So by all means, this isn't a bad pick. But you just wish the production was better. You would feel much better if it said 10 sacks, right? 7 sacks, 8 sacks. But overall, guys, and Greg Zabel, who the Bengals are rumored to like as well, goes to the Seattle Seahawks.
That was a phenomenal fit.
Phenomenal fit for sure. He is an absolute freak. He is an absolute freak. Tested like one of the best defensive ends, from an athletic profile, And Diamond RG says, but Mike Green was so much safer. Mike Green might have been safer as far as a pass rusher, but he wasn't safer in terms of the sexual assault allegations that he's been essentially. They said he's had 2 sexual assault allegations in the last few years. Those are really alarming. That's the only reason why. But if they can develop this guy, maybe he turns into something special for the Bengals. You guys can talk further about this.
Yeah, I'm not. And when we discuss this, listen, everybody, we love all these opinions, right? Drop them down in the comment section. I'm not going to rule this pick out yet. I'm not. And for me, immediately my mind goes to this, and obviously the Bengals could decide to do something different. I'm not trading Trey Hendrickson. I'm not. When I look at how this defensive line is shaping up right now, this pick works with Trey Hendrickson on the team. This pick doesn't work as of right now for me. If you go in a couple picks or tomorrow and trade Trey Hendrickson, that's for me. I think that Shamar Stewart can develop, and if he's not asked to day one be your Trey Hendrickson replacement, I can work with it, right? Because I do see him having the upside from the interior, and I think that's something that these other guys, James Pierce Jr., doesn't give me that. James Pierce Jr. is a solidified edge rusher. He is a stand-up outside pass rusher. That is what he is. Same thing with Mike Green. They do it at a phenomenal rate, and they're going to go to a team and probably ball out with that team. As of right now, if I'm trying to see what is the upside with Shamar Stewart, it is the fact that this dude got in the backfield, at will, and he bulldozed offensive linemen.
I've got something to tell Bengals fans right now, really quickly, that they're not going to agree with, and it's okay. I love you all regardless. Shamar Stewart is probably in Ducks. After I say this, Ducks is probably the second best pass rusher on the Bengals right now after Trey Hendrickson. I'm ducking because I know people hate this pick. Yeah. I didn't say he finishes sacks. There's pass rusher. Pass rusher doesn't mean sacks. Pass rusher means just being a disruptor, winning off the line of scrimmage. He does that at a very elite rate, being honest with you. If he can figure out the finishing aspect of it, holy hell, this is a home run pick. But the issues that I think Myles Murphy has, he does not have.
They're different.
Myles Murphy struggles coming off the line of scrimmage. Joseph Ossai struggles coming off the line of scrimmage. Shamar Stewart does not have that issue. That being said, when Myles Murphy has you in his grasp, he makes that tackle. He makes that sack. So I'm just saying that right now. Shamar Stewart instantly is the best pass rusher, defensive end after Trey Hendrickson on the Bengals right now by a large margin. Yeah, by a large margin.
And real quick, I know you want to go real quick. The Mike Green conversation, and I understand it, right? I think if we are trying to, in my head, why would I pick Shamar Stewart over Mike Green? It is for two reasons. Outside of obviously the concerns about him and personally, it is the fact that their size is completely different. Mike Green did it at a lower level. And some of his sacks, and I credit one of our hosts, Logan, who talked about this with the Mike Green. It is somewhat similar to, he finished plays, but a lot of times it's like an ankle. It's like, he's got the moves, but there are some concerns of, hey, can he come in and be your number one pass rusher? Let's say if they don't have a Trey Hendrickson. And I think that the floor of Shamar Stewart, what he can give you from the interior, especially with the way that Al Golden loves to have, his pass rusher be almost like his 3-tech, it gives you a higher floor. But like I said, that's if I'm trying to sell myself on this pick, that's where I see Shamar Stewart coming in. But I'm curious to see where like a James Pierce and Mike Green go. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, if you want to know how to sell yourself on this pick, it's the fact that he had a 9.8, 9.9 RAD score. Like that's how you sell yourself on this pick. I mean, there's no way to get around it. Dude's an athletic freak, a monster. And like we talked about before, that's like the kind of guy that the Bengals like. It's the traits guys. And you don't have to squint too hard to see the path where he capitalizes on those traits.
Yep.
I mean, does he get there? I'm pessimistic. But like Malik said, I don't think you're wrong in any capacity. I don't think you have to duck when you say that he's the second best pass rusher on the Bengals from day one. I don't think the bar is very high. I mean, we're hoping, I don't know if we're rightfully still holding out hope on Myles Murphy, but I would say a chunk of the fan base is still holding out hope on Myles Murphy. But I don't think it's ridiculous to say that he comes in as the number 2 pass rusher on this roster. But kind of getting back, like, yeah, the path to success is through that athleticism. We'll see if Al Golden and the coaching staff can harness it. It's the Myles Garrett comps that came out after the combine are unfounded. Those are a bit ridiculous, but I mean, you can see the path to him becoming a productive pass rusher.
You know what I could see happening? I could see him being a disruptor like he's been throughout in college, never being a double-digit sack guy, but Myles Murphy and company and those guys racking up a bunch of sacks. I could 100% see that. And that's a very, very real possibility. You hope that he develops into a double-digit sack guy and can be a leader like that. But there's a reason, some people say sacks are an overrated stat. Depending on who you talk to. I think the pass rush win rate is something that is significant and teams look for. And I think that's why you see a lot of guys who can win on the line of scrimmage and can shed their blocks to get paid. There is not a lot of guys in the league who have, 20 sacks, 17 sacks, right? Those are the elite of the elite. I listen. I by the way, and just I'm not fighting anybody on this, but I understand why everybody's pissed.
Yeah.
I think that they had a chance to do something. This is a project. This is still a project. This is still a project player, and you're hoping that they can figure it out with him, man.
Wow.
Emeka Ibuka goes to the Buccaneers. Is that the Buccaneers that took him?
Yeah.
Chris
wow.
Godwin. Didn't they just re-sign him too?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. They did. They got him on a good deal, Godwin. But I mean, I don't know. He's put. I think he's 29 this season, 30.
Injuries.
Yeah, coming off the dislocated ankle. I mean, I liked what I saw out of Jalen McMillan last year.
That's right.
Yeah, I believe they grabbed him in the 3rd round, but a lot of touchdowns, some splash plays. But I mean, they must really love something here in Ibuka, potentially just gearing up for the loss of one of Chris Godwin or Mike Evans in the next couple of years. Definitely a bit of a surprising pick. I know he was kind of a coin flip really to go in the 1st round, but I mean, an Ohio State guy myself, I mean, can you really be too mad about getting the Ohio State's all-time leading receiver in both yards and receptions? Inside out versatility, just an all-around high floor, sure-handed guy. So, I mean, it's a little bit questionable given that they just picked up McMillan, but with 2 aging receivers and the hope that they can continue to build with Baker Mayfield, you can't blame them.
His floor is, and this was in one of our articles at TWSN, he has the highest floor in this class, in my opinion. I think this dude, no matter Emeka Ibuka, I think wherever he went, he is going to succeed. And I really don't think whatever team it is.
I don't know if there's much more growing he's going to do as a receiver, though.
Totally fair.
Though. I think that what you've seen him do at Ohio State, he's going to offer, and that's fine. That's great. I don't know if he's necessarily ever going to break into that top 15 receiver in the National Football League. And if you spend a guy in, to me, I think Emeka Ibuka is going to wind up carving himself out a great career. He's a good pro. I think he's a guy that you got to like. I think you know what you're getting when you're getting a pro's pro. You're getting a guy that's going to do his job at a significant rate. I'm very curious now. I want to get back to the Bengals talk, though. I'm very curious if Mike Green, James Pierce Jr., and those guys will fall now.
I think, yeah.
I think you see one of them in the 2nd round.
That's going to be interesting to me. I do wonder if a guy like if a team like the Ravens or something like that will pick one of those guys, and because they always
Howie's licking his chops.
Oh yeah, 100%. They have to be.
Well, and let me say this too. I think that before we get back to Shamar Stewart, like respectfully, and this is a Mike Green. I don't necessarily know where the NFL viewed him totally, but he was a guy where respectfully he got hyped up a lot during this draft process because of the Senior Bowl. Because of his talent, maybe the NFL is saying, hey, the problems that you had, we're not willing to bet on that. So I'm curious. It wouldn't shock me at this point if he fell to round 2. But you were about to say something, Malik?
Yeah. So, I want to touch on something real quickly. And, people talk about this pick being terrible, and I understand why they're saying that with the production from a production standpoint and how we can't develop a guy. Isn't that the reason why you fired Lou Anarumo? Isn't that the reason why you fired Lou Anarumo? Because you said Lou Anarumo fails to develop young people. And we all talked about Al Golden and his ability to work with young players and get the most out of young players and being adaptable because he just came from the college game. That's why you hired Al Golden. That is what you're hoping for with Al Golden. There's no player right now. There's no player right now that you're going to draft. I don't care if it's Cam Ward. There's no player in this draft class that you're going to draft right now. You say, guess what? He has no area to improve in his game. That's why these guys are making the change from college to professional. You went out and you hired Al Golden, and Jerry Montgomery is the new defensive line coach because the last coaching staff, Marion Hobby, Lou Anarumo, were not able to develop guys. So guess what? Before we say anything, let's see if they can develop guys. Let's see if those hires that the Cincinnati Bengals made are going to actually prove to be good hires because you brought those guys in to bring the most out of the young players, out of Miles Murphy, the most out of Joseph Osai, and now the most out of Shamar Stewart. And if they can't do that, there's a fundamental issue with the Cincinnati Bengals. But guess what? Months ago, we sat up here and we said, we need to get rid of Lou Anarumo. We need to get rid of Marion Hobby. Those moves happened. And the people that they went out and tasked, right? The defensive savant in a guy like Al Golden, the guys that they went out and hired are now tasked to do the job that they were brought in to do. Your job is to draft, develop, and retain. Are you going to be able to develop him? If he's not going to be able to, that's a huge whiff as a hire. That's a huge whiff as a hire for Zach Taylor and company. Because Al Golden was brought in to correct the mistakes of Lou Anarumo. And if we don't believe that he and his staff can correct them, why did we fire Lou Anarumo?
Mm-hmm.
So you either trust the Bengals process of hiring Al Golden and company to make the corrections, or guess what? We blow it all up and we say this season is shit before it even starts. Something that's interesting, though, and I'm very, very curious. Peter Schrager said something on ESPN Get Up. He said if the Bengals drafted Shamar Stewart, hint, hint, right? Hear me out. He said if the Bengals drafted Shamar Stewart, he'd think that they'd be much more inclined to trade Trey Hendrickson. If that is the thought process, dear God.
Yep.
Dear God. Because Pete Schrager, I've had many conversations with him. He doesn't just say things to say stuff. The Bengals, everybody from that covers the team, that knows as inside information with the team, the talk all throughout the draft process was guys like Walter Nolan, James Pierce Jr., the whole 9 yards. The conversation shifted the last week to Shamar Stewart. And I think in large part, when Shamar Stewart tested like a freak, nobody expected Shamar Stewart to actually be there. But then the draft cycle did something that it doesn't usually do. It calmed down. The conversation around Shamar Stewart calmed down and went back to his production. So now they're saying, you know what? We want to grab a guy like Shamar Stewart. And that's why nobody's breaking any news. Nobody is simply just knows better than everyone. But that's why everybody that covers the team, you didn't hear anybody talk about Shamar Stewart up until the last few days.
Yeah.
And that's because the team had put it out there. Behind backwards channels, we're targeting Shamar. We're targeting Shamar. So the reason why you saw players' brothers tweeting like that this morning about Shamar Stewart, because it was the worst kept secret among Bengal fans. The reason why we talked about it on the show, Shamar Stewart was the pick. So Shamar Stewart is now the pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. That all being said, it's interesting to me because Pete Schrager threw out the idea that they might trade Trey Hendrickson to coop more picks. Are they going to trade Trey Hendrickson? Are they going to? Was that the thought process now? Now are they saying, Trey, you're expendable because we drafted Shamar Stewart? I don't know.
Like, yeah, I'd be sick. I'd be sick. And I can understand the thought process, sure. For me, as I look at this, man, like Trey Hendrickson would make Shamar's life a lot easier. When I watch, Miles Murphy's film and when I watch Joseph Ossai's film, a lot of times as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, well, it's a cleanup sack, right? And that's cool. A cleanup sack works when you have Trey Hendrickson. I like the Shamar Stewart pick right now. I probably would have went other places, sure. But when we talked about it, if I line up Trey Hendrickson, wow, Broncos go Ja'Day Barron.
Yeah. Good. Wow. You pair him up with Patrick Surtain, and then you still have Riley Moss, who played well in spurts last year. He obviously got picked on when he came back from the injury. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
That's a good pick.
Probably the fact that one of the running backs didn't go early. They're probably just saying, hey, we can get a running back around too. Like I said, if I look at the Bengals defensive line, your Bengals defensive line got far more athletic. I would just be very against the Trey Hendrickson trade because, like I said, I can envision a world where this defensive line works. Trey Hendrickson is your workhorse. And Shamar Stewart, we've seen him many times. He had Nick Gordon on the other side. I'm cool with him being a cleanup guy. I think that he could, really relish in that role. I would be very.
Can we do something though? Seriously, on a real note, let's not implode. I'm seeing too many comments being disrespectful to the panel up here. Respectfully, guys, we treat everybody with respect and love. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Please don't call anybody dumb on here. Please. We're simply just giving our opinions on stuff or things we're hearing. Please. At the end of the day, the draft is such an awesome time for fans, NFL fans alike. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Daniel's not dumb. Daniel's not dumb. I don't like that. Like we could all be unhappy with the pick. People can be unhappy with the pick without calling people names. Let's not do that. You could be unhappy with the pick, but he didn't make the pick. He's not in the Bengals front office.
And I'm also not saying that I would have went Shamar Stewart. I would have went elsewhere. But I'm I'm attempting to look at from the Bengals lens, guys. Like, what is their plan, right? Because obviously the Bengals picked him. They've got a plan for him somehow. So I'm trying to figure out what is their plan for him, right? Like I said, I probably would have went elsewhere, but there is a world where it turns out well, and there's a world where it works. And I'm just stating the point as of right now, especially. I can see a world where it works with Trey Hendrickson. For me, I'm not even at this point. If I'm the Bengals, I've got to re-sign Trey Hendrickson. I don't think that there's a world where Shamar Stewart comes in day one is dominating the NFL. So I think all around.
Here's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
You're gonna get everything that you hope for when you signed Al Golden as the defense coordinator, because you brought him in. You brought him in to develop. And to me, there could not be a more developmental pick than a Shamar Stewart.
Totally.
If he's able to develop him and turn him into a double-digit sack guy, or and mixed with that disruptiveness he has, man, then Al Golden's hire was really a home run hire. I'm be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he has his work cut out for him. Shamar Stewart has his work cut out for him. One thing you can't say is now the Bengals invested in the defensive line. You guys got Miles Murphy. You still have Cam Sample. You have Joseph Ossai back on the fold. You, as of now, you still have Trey Hendrickson. This is going to be interesting. Mike, you've been quiet over there. I want to hear your thoughts.
Like, as someone brought it up in the chat earlier, do the Bengals have time for a developmental prospect? I mean, anyone who tuned into a Cincinnati Bengals game last season, they saw that this pass rush was dust outside of Trey Hendrickson.
The Steelers passed on Shador Sanders.
Oh, I thought you were saying
they drafted Derek Harmon.
Dust. Yeah,
that's a good pick for the defensive line.
Cam Hayward,
and they have they've got somebody else I absolutely love on the team. They just drafted interior defense lineman, but
that's a good pick.
Yeah, it's a very good pick for the defensive line. The fact that he's in the AFC North as well. Their defensive line, they keep churning out. Now they must think it's Aaron Rodgers. They've got to.
I mean, there's also, we can talk about, this is a whole nother can of worms, another discussion, but in the eyes of some of these teams, there's 3 quarterbacks still there, with Tyler Shuck being the third and the other 2 obvious ones. So there's a world where they think that they can pick up one of those guys potentially with a trade early tomorrow. So we'll see what their plan is at quarterback. I know that there's been comments coming out about we're comfortable with Mason Rudolph in week 1. I don't think relegation comes to mind when talking about a team being legitimately comfortable with Mason Rudolph as your QB1 going into an NFL season. But knowing that we're going to face Derek Harmon for the foreseeable future, and that now they have the heir apparent to Cam Hayward when he inevitably hangs him up here in a few years. That's unfortunate, but as a Bengals fan, you can take some solace in the fact that at least with 21 picks in the first round of this year's draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers do not have a franchise quarterback, and no one that resembles a franchise quarterback on the roster. So we'll see, but kind of getting back to the Bengals and Stewart and stuff. Now that it's kind of starting to set in and we're talking through this, I do agree with the sentiment that a lot of the onus does fall on the coaching staff here and their ability to actually get the most out of the traits of Shamar Stewart. Because I mean, the draft pick was for the traits. They believe that they can develop this player into someone who's impactful for this defense, someone who can produce. Like I stated before, I'm pessimistic that he gets there. But a lot of it does fall on the coaching staff to do their part here. I would have liked to see potentially a trade back or just another player at 17. It is what it is, but it's this is the reality of the situation. But kind of talking about the Trey Hendrickson stuff. I once again, just as a Bengals fan, like you can look at the spreadsheets. The spreadsheets will tell you that a second round pick is probably fair for Trey Hendrickson's services, given his age and what he's expected to be paid. But I don't know if, as a fan, I want to give him up for a second round pick at this point in time. I think I'd rather see them either pay it out or pay up and give him the contract, or see. I know a holdout has been discussed, but just test the waters, see what it looks like if we get to training camp and trade Nora and extension has been reached. But I would like to see these two, Stewart and Hendrickson, on the field together as Cincinnati Bengals. We can complain. I'm going to complain about the pick, but seeing them on the field together, I think is the best case scenario for the Cincinnati Bengals as a football team, as a defense as a whole, as we roll into 2025. But do you guys think that the Bengals can accelerate the plans of the project for Shamar Stewart fast enough to where this defense and this pass rush in particular is in a spot where they can succeed in 2025?
Before you do that, I just want to say one last thing. If you guys want to laugh, because I know the tensions are very high right now, I tweeted about this. Me and Daniel the other night were literally for hours, about an hour. I don't want to say exaggerate and say hours, but about an hour. We were watching Shamar Stewart interviews when I told Daniel that I was hearing that he was going to be the pick. And he has the funniest laugh.
No, it's crazy.
It's like a tick. It's like a nervous tick. He has the funniest laugh that you'll ever hear. And I say that just to say, if you want to find something that's hilarious, see his interviews. He's very insightful for who he patterns his game after. I believe he said he patterned his game after who was it, Daniel? Man.
Not DeMarcus Ware. It was
well, we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But he has literally the funniest laugh. I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry, Mike. Repeat that question one last time. Sorry.
Do you think the Bengals have the ability and the time to accelerate the plans of the project that is Shamar Stewart, and to a point that this can be a legitimate pass rush in 2025?
Yeah. I think that's the hope. I mean, by the way, it was Julius Peppers. That's who he said he didn't modern his game after too. It just hit me. Julius Peppers. I think that they have. I think the issues with him are correct. Are coachable. It's finishing. It's finishing the tackle. You know, you look at a guy like Nick Scorton. I don't think that the Texas A&M defense sort of got a lot of help from the offense this past year, so they were on the field quite often. I think when you look at it, what he excels at in terms of getting off the line, being able to shed his blocker, that's what you needed, because outside of Trey Hendrickson, you didn't have anybody that was able to do that for the Bengals. And I feel like that's what they truly were missing. So I do believe that from a disruptive standpoint, I do think he can work on his hands. I do think that is I do think that is what they needed. So
yeah, I think that when you look at this defensive line, there's a world where it works out this year, and I think the sentiment is you are banking on Al Golden, you're banking on this defense, you're banking on a revamping of a message, right? Because you have the same guys. You've got Miles Murphy in there, you have Joseph Asai in there. I think that there's a world where they look better than they were last year. I think it's going to come down to Al Golden. And like I said, at this point, I'm just looking at it. Trey Hendrickson has to be on my week 1 roster. If we're talking about their defensive line being far better than it was last year. So I don't expect this to be a dominant defensive line from day one. I don't. And I think that they could develop into a formidable defensive line. But this is also, I believe this Shamar Stewart pick right away is going to put more pressure on your secondary. It's going to put more pressure on Cam Taylor-Britt, on Josh Newton if he's your starting slot cornerback, on Geno Stone. So to answer your question, I don't think it does from day one. I think that they could develop into solid pass rush from, this season. The hope is beyond year one, because I do think that the hand placement, that's going to take some time. So it wouldn't shock me if he ramps up the volume in sacks, because that's what a lot of people look at, because he has Trey Hendrickson on the other side. So if I were to make a prediction, I don't think that it's a shock if he gets 5, 6, 7 sacks this year, because a lot of it could come from the opposite side. But from the down-to-down consistency as a pass rusher, that remains to be seen. So
he did just say Trey Hendrickson is going to be his best buddy this offseason. So hopefully some of that talent rub off on him, and we get this project, get those deadlines pushed up, and then he's ready to be a 7-8 sack guy in 2025. What do you guys think in terms of realistic goals? What would make you happy? And I know obviously when it comes to pass rushes, things out, it includes stuff outside of sack total, but what do you think would make this pick a success in year one?
Seeing the field, one, actually making a significant impact and doing what being that disruptor that he could be. I think that those are things that you'd be very, very happy about. Dana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a realistic expectation is, like I said, I'm not going to look too much into numbers for me personally, because I do think that there's a world where he has 2 games, and in both of those games, he gets 2.5 sacks, right? Whether it's a game against a terrible offensive line. So I'm not going to look too much into the specific sack numbers, because I think those can be inflated. It's going to be, hey, can he be at the end of the season? Can he be my starting outside pass rusher opposite Trey Hendrickson? Heading into the playoffs, Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart are my 2 starting edge rushers. That's what I view as a success. That's what I would view as saying, hey, we're heading into the playoffs with a chance to win the Super Bowl, and Shamar Stewart is seeing a lot of snaps heading into the playoffs. That would be a major win in my book. A negative would be we're heading into the playoffs with a rotation of Myles Murphy, Osai, and Shamar Stewart in year 1. And we're looking at Trey Hendrickson not getting re-signed. And we're heading into year 2 with Shamar Stewart being my number 1 pass rusher without Trey Hendrickson. That's what a nightmare scenario looks like for me. But we'll see. And like I said, I think that's how I view the 2 scenarios. And I look at it, hey, heading into the playoffs, that's what I care about. And that's what we all cared about this past season. Week 18, we were looking at it, we say, we got a chance to make the playoffs. If he's my starter, come week 18, I think that's a win so far for the season.
I think I seriously think it was a blessing and a curse. I think the Bengals saw the improved defense down the stretch when Lou Anarumo simplified the defense. And I think they said to themselves, our defense is better than what we actually showed. They're saying in their eyes, they're saying injuries and lack of development of the young players is the reason, or even playing of the young players is the reason why the defense was as poor. And they think that in their minds, had Lou simplified the defense earlier in the season, and how he played the young players earlier, I think the Bengals believed that they would have been in the playoffs. I really believe that. So I think they almost view this defense as a retooling versus a actual rebuilt defense. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Totally. And they're banking on Al Golden. They're banking, saying, hey, we think Osai can be a very good guy for us. We think that Myles Murphy can be a very good guy for us. They believe in Slayton. They believe in their defensive line right now. And we'll see. I think
Sorry, go ahead.
No, like real quick, the cornerbacks, I think that you're banking on these guys turning up. Cam Taylor-Britt, wow. Marvin Hampton,
Yeah,
to the Chargers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Najee Harris, dust ball.
Najee Harris and Amari. Yeah, Najee Harris. Sorry for you, man.
See you never, buddy.
That's a fun offense, but I just think that you're putting a lot of pressure on your cornerbacks and Geno Stone, but they're banking on Al Golden, and Al Golden must have a plan for all these defensive linemen, and we'll see what Al Golden's got in store for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned it multiple times on this show. It's really going to fall on the shoulders of Al Golden, but it still remains hard to get fired up about this defense and this pass rush. But what you were saying earlier when I was talking about what would make this a success, if week 18 rolls around, the schedule hasn't come out yet. Probably a divisional opponent. Week 18 rolls around, and Shamar Stewart is in a rotation with Myles Murphy and Joseph Osai. I will be beyond pissed. I will be so incredibly frustrated. I mean, the fact that they've thrown dart after dart, and I mean, Osai was a 3rd-round pick, right? I know he's day 2, but so obviously not a massive investment, but dart after dart at someone to pair just to shore up this pass rush. And Hubbard had his years. He was serviceable. He was quality for some of those years. But I mean, it just dreaming and hoping that there would be an elite pass rusher alongside Trey Hendrickson, and like I've said, that they've made those investments in guys like Miles Murphy, and it just hasn't come to fruition yet. It seems like we could be heading down a similar path yet again. But yeah, it comes down to the coaching staff. Everything that we know when it comes to the athletic testing and how he's looked on tape as well is that the pieces are there. You just have to assemble the puzzle. We'll see what Al Golden can bring. This defense is obviously gonna undergo some transformations with Al Golden at the helm. Yeah. At this point, you just gotta count your lucky stars and hope that he can bring the most out of them.
Yeah. So we saw the Chargers take Amari and Hampton, running back. I know a lot of Broncos people were shocked. They thought Travion Henderson or Amari Hampton was going to be the pick there, and I don't think the Broncos expected Jahdae Barron to be there. This draft is shaping up. I'm really we'll go live until Baltimore's pick.
Okay.
We'll stay live until Baltimore's pick to see who Baltimore selects, to see if they break our heart and see if they take a pass rusher by the name of Mike Green or James Pierce Jr. Wouldn't that be such a Baltimore thing to do?
Totally.
That would be such a Baltimore thing to do. What if the Rams paired him up with with Jared Verse and decided, hey, you know what, we want to get another difference maker at defensive end?
The thing that pisses me off right now, Malik, is
piss you off. You're pissed.
no, I'm frustrated because there's these teams at the end of the draft. They're gonna have guys that are at their disposal, and that's the frustrating part because it's like, and I understand as of right now, it shows okay, maybe the league is lower on James Pierce Jr., maybe they're lower on Mike Green because of these personal reasons. Teams at the back end of the draft, the Chiefs, the 49ers, or the Kansas City Chiefs, the Ravens, these teams, they're going to have some damn talented guys at their disposal. And I'm just curious to see where these guys end up. But there's a lot of talented guys. Even a guy like Malachi Starks, everybody expected heading into this year, top 10 pick. A team's going to get a starting safety.
Ooh, what if the Ravens went Malachi Starks? They did
Pair him up
just
with
release
Kyle
Marcus
Hamilton.
Williams, didn't they?
Yep. Pair him up, Kyle Hamilton.
Don't the Vikings need a safety as well?
They
they could.
They lost Bynum.
They lost
right?
Bynum, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They did lose Bynum. That is true.
Yeah.
And you know what's still shocking that Julian Blackman's still sitting out there. That's
Yeah.
kind of shocking to me. I thought he was a good player for the Colts.
He was. Who the Colts took? Tyler Warren. Okay.
That was the biggest layup pick of all time. I mean, whether it's good or not, that's a different story. But Colts going Tyler Warren was pretty easy. I mean, what are you going to do? Roll out Will Mallory and Mo Alley Cox again for the 5th straight year?
Who do you guys think has won this draft so far?
It
might be early to say, but like at this point, we're at pick 23. Who do we think has won? Well, somebody said Will Johnson going to Baltimore. I could totally see that.
Oh yeah,
that'd be such a. But the Packers could go Will Johnson here. The Packers are shopping Jair Alexander.
They need a corner.
They need a corner. I know if I was him, I would hate that.
I don't know. It's tough. I think it remains to be seen. The Browns immediately, I would have said, have won it. I love the fact that they got that 1st round pick for next year. And I think if the Browns end up selecting a quarterback in round 2, I would probably consider them one of the biggest winners because they entered today with the 2nd overall pick. And obviously you don't get Travis Hunter, but respectfully, you're not competing this year. You're competing down the line. And I see a lot of people saying, well, they're trying to make up for the Deshaun Watson trade. This is how you do it, I think. This is how you allocate. You get resources back. You get next year's 1st round pick for the Jaguars. If they don't make the playoffs, that's a mid-1st round pick. So Mason Graham isn't sexy, and I understand Kevin Stefanski's probably pissed because at the end of the day, his job may be on the line. But the Browns organization as a whole, from entering today versus where they are now, I would probably consider them the winners because I think they're primed to head into day 2. They got 2 second-round picks. I think they're going to have one of potentially Milroe, Dart, or Shador if they don't get picked at the end of round 1. So I would probably go with the Cleveland Browns as my biggest winner so far.
I would agree, and for different reasons, slightly. So I think if you're Andrew Berry and you've sat down with ownership, I'm blanking on the name right now.
Haslam?
Yeah, the Haslams. You sat down with the Haslams and basically had the conversation. Your job's not on the line this year. Just make up for the screw up in the Deshaun Watson trade. I think he's kind of walked around the landmines in this draft perfectly. You dodge a terrible quarterback class. You add extra draft capital in this year's quarterback class or this year's draft and next year, picking up a second and a first round pick. And I obviously it depends on who it is and where they pick them up. But I do think the move is to just dodge this quarterback class. Maybe you pick up a Shuck, a Will Howard, someone who you don't feel obligated to lean on for the next couple of years, but can potentially put together a competent product on the field next season. And so you're not winning 3 games. But I really do think that the best course of action is to really address quarterback in the long term next season. And because if it's a Dart, if it's a Sanders, it's far harder to say, yeah, we're going to go back to the well next season with a quarterback. But I think that's the best route, is to dip into next year's class and to just avoid it, kind of bite the bullet this year. And it really does come down to whether Stefanski and Barry are coaching for their jobs, or not necessarily Barry in that case. But I do think that this is the smartest long-term path for the Browns, is to avoid this quarterback class, rack up as much draft capital as you can, address the other holes in the roster. So if they continue kind of going down this path where they're not going after Dart or Sanders, I do think that they would be the winners of this draft class in terms of making amends for the numerous missteps of the last couple of years.
Totally. Another one, I think that's
Golden.
Matthew Golden.
Good pick.
What?
Good pick.
Scrub.
Think so?
Scrub.
Matthew Golden, he's the concern I have. I'm curious. I'm wondering if one of those guys is going to get traded. I mean, they got Christian Watson, they got Romeo
Watson's
Doubs.
not playing next year.
That's right. Yeah. Romeo Doubs, and they got Wicks. Okay.
And
Reed. So they got 4 wide receivers now. All kind of similar, I would say. Reed's a little different, obviously, but Golden,
Get another weapon for their young quarterback.
yeah. I mean, you got to capitalize on his rookie, or where he's at right now. One other team, real quick. I'm curious to see where they end up going the rest of this draft. But from a pure defensive line standpoint, I like the fact that the Cardinals took Walter Nolan. I think when you hear these names, Josh Sweat was the big signing. You got Calais Campbell, who's coming in, obviously just on a 1-year contract, but you got Walter Nolan, and you got Darius Robinson, your first round pick last year. Those are 3 young guys I think that can learn a lot from a Calais Campbell. And I think the Arizona Cardinals have had so many struggles with, they're trying to go all over the place. They got the flashy quarterback. They got their wide receiver. They got Trey McBride, but they're not winning in the trenches. So I think you have to start somewhere. And I think the fact that they're in a division with, some of these teams that are trying to go flashy, like the Seahawks, if you build that interior defensive line, I think that Walter Nolan was a home run pick. And I know Bengals fans are going to hate to hear this, but he was a home run pick for the Arizona Cardinals. I love what they did. And the fact that they get to build and potentially develop Darius Robinson. They got Josh Sweat. I think he was one of my favorite selections from this year's draft so far. Matthew Golden. Wow.
I can tell you this was one of my least favorite picks.
Matthew Golden.
What don't you like about him?
Well, for starters, I mean, you that number right there on the screen, 429. I'm not trying to buy in any conspiracies too heavily, but there's some legitimate evidence that it was mistimed. Golden's 40. So that's kind of one of the big things that his profile is banking on. But he's a 3-2 game wonder. It was 26% of his yardage and 32% of his receptions came in 2 games down the stretch last year. Just a very, very low percentile guy in terms of his receiving yards per game. As a first round pick. I mean, he's down there with just some of the all-time busts in terms of the production standpoint. And just as someone who leans into the analytics far more heavily than the film, I mean, in terms of his production profile and his analytical stuff, he is just as bad as it gets for a top tier prospect. I mean, this guy wasn't doing anything until the last 4 games of the year. He was being effectively outproduced by Gunnar Helm and Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond, I mean, there's other reasons there, but he's just plummeting down the draft boards. I mean, I don't think it's crazy. Most people would agree that through the first 8 weeks, 7-8 weeks of the year, Isaiah Bond was the top receiver on the Texas offense. I mean, I've been burned, and everyone has burned time and time again by leaning into small sample sizes. This is about as small as it gets. It's 4 games of legitimate production from this guy, and he didn't play well throughout his time at Texas. I mean, I know you can just like give him a break for his adjustment to going from Houston to Texas. Getting used to that bigger school, bigger opponents. He's playing against SEC talent. But I mean, this is just an all-time bottom of the barrel guy for a first-round receiver when it comes to his production profile.
Wow. Yeah. I think that when I look at these guys, I think that in a nutshell, his ceiling is there, right? When you look at that sample size, when you look at those games, the ceiling is there. And one of the bright spots, if I'm trying to pick out a bright spot for him, is the fact that he was the go-to guy down the stretch for Quinn Ewers. That's probably the bright spot, right? I think that they probably reached a little bit on need. They needed a wide receiver. I think that a guy like Luther Burden, is a guy that's likely he may not be drafted in round 1, but I think that there's a lot of these talented wide receivers they could have got a little bit later. But hey, I'm always of the mindset, hey, if you have a franchise quarterback, you have to do whatever it takes to capitalize on that. And I think Matthew Golden, albeit I don't know if he comes in, Mike, and is a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't know if he comes in and is maybe even a 900, 800-yard receiver because they've got some other weapons. But you have to sell it to your quarterback, and we'll see where it gets them. But I agree. I don't think that this was my favorite pick.
I'll tell you what, this all aside, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing after this live stream. I'm jumping in my diesel truck and I'm going to take a ride up 275 and I'm going to hit up Wawa. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. That's a real thing that's going to happen after tonight's draft. I knew it, yeah, I understand why Bengals fans, and I know we're talking about, I understand why Bengals fans are upset. I understand why they're frustrated with everything like that. And White Brown says, why are we not talking about Bengals bust right now? Well, we're talking about everything. We talk about everything on this channel, not just Bengals. We talk about the NFL draft. That's why it's the TWSN NFL draft live show. But yeah, this is I don't know. Who do you guys think was the biggest loser?
This is where it gets fun. The biggest loser. Maybe if I had to look, I'd probably say, and maybe this isn't a specific team, but Mike McDaniel. I think at this point, maybe this is me jumping the gun, I think Mike McDaniel's gone after the season. I look at the roster. I like Kenneth Grant, in a nutshell. I think he helps out their team. They lost Calais Campbell. You filled a need. What does this do for your team all around, though, this season? You're banking on what you had last year. You lost talent this offseason. You've got about 5 other holes. You need 5 to fill 5 starter spots. I think that Mike McDaniel
Vikings took Donovan Jackson?
Yeah.
And the Giants just traded up, apparently. I don't know.
Whoa.
Who.
Yeah, the Giants traded up.
Wow.
Dart season.
Who did they trade up with?
To number 25. So I think Houston.
Wow. Houston needs picks.
Desperately.
Wow.
The Giants trade up?
Wow.
It's gotta be Dart.
I'm shocked
But-
the Vikings weren't working the phones. They only have 4 picks in this draft.
I guess you establish, hey, JJ McCarthy, we're building your offensive line. Donovan Jackson was one. I mean, offensive line kind of went early.
Quickly.
Yeah, I mean, who's still on the board? Connerly's on the board, but good for Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, you still got some names on the board. I feel like Ariante Irsay's name has just been quiet. You haven't heard anything. There's so much talk about him throughout the draft process, and now it's just gone quiet. But do we all think the Bengals are going to draft offensive line second round?
I think
Yeah.
you have to pencil
I do.
it in,
Taylor Allage, if
man.
he's there.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. Pretty sure that's where they go. I don't know. I mean, and when I say pretty sure that's where they go, I'm pretty sure they go offensive line. If he's there, we'll see.
Malik, and this is the part for me where it's like, what do they do, right? You pencil yourself in to do this. And there's going to be guys on the board that are starting caliber offensive linemen. It pigeonholes you, though, a little bit because there's going to be talent on the board that potentially you like better. But yes, I'm totally of the belief. I know we'll talk about this. Obviously, we've got our stream, for day 2, but Tate Ratledge, Ursery, Jonas Avaina,
And the Rams traded. They said that's what Ian says. The Rams are trading and the Giants are on the clock. So
Rams maybe trade back.
With who though?
Maybe the Browns trade up for the quarterback. It could be back-to-back quarterbacks, or the Eagles maybe trade up for James Pierce.
Eagles kept trying to trade up.
Yeah.
Giants, it's got to be quarterback here. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it's edge. You can add another edge to your room.
Yeah.
I'm sure people in the comment section saw, but Joe Shane, his son put out a video or a highlight of Jackson Dart, and everybody saw last year. You wanted Jaden Daniels. He's like a fan favorite, but he put out that the kid, Joe Shane's son, likes Jackson Dart. I mean,
yeah, and all the reports coming out the last few days is that Dart's the Giants guy. So I would be pretty shocked if the pick isn't Dart here. But I don't know. For kind of going back to the losers thing, it's really hard to call the Jaguars a loser. But is that an overpay to move up and get Travis Hunter? I really do think it is. I don't know how much. It's interesting because how much can you realistically? How many snaps a game can you realistically say you're going to play Travis Hunter? Because if there's no way they believe this, but just kind of going out on hypotheticals, if they say we're going to play Travis Hunter, like say 60% of the snaps on offense, most of the passing plays, and then they say we're going to play him 75% of the plays on defense, like you're filling 2 holes. Like if you feel like you can basically full-time fill 2 needs, like then it's worth it. But I do really think it comes down to how much they really think they can get out of Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball. But it just kind of viewing him I know you can't view him that way, but just as one player, but he's really like kind of like you're trading for 2 players, but in the sense that he's just one player, it's an overpay.
He's a superstar.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it obviously sucks if I think that this dude, his ceiling, I think he's going to be an all-pro. And that's where, hey, is that the price you pay? Maybe, but I think the fact that you gave up a second and next year's first, that kills me because I just don't think that this roster is ready to win right now. The flip side, though, if they believe that their roster is ready to win right now, if they believe that in the next 2 years they're competing for a Super Bowl, maybe it is a good move because I think immediately Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. are going to rival these other teams for best wide receiver duo in a year or 2. We look at a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins. I think next year we could be looking at these guys rivaling them potentially. And I think that's something where, once again, if you have a franchise quarterback, you have to make it work. But like I said, giving up a first-round pick, Mike and Malik, is
and a
second this year. It's tough. So the Giants trade, they gave up a second, a third, and next year's third. I don't think that's that bad.
Giants did it too.
Yeah,
Jackson Dart.
Yeah, that's no shot.
Yeah.
With the reporting the last couple of days. One name that I'm interested to see. Do you think? I don't think he gets there, but would you just kind of, speaking of hypotheticals, how do you feel about Josh Simmons' fit with the Bengals?
He's not.
I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm good on it. I'm good. Like, cause I just think that your need right now is guard.
Yeah,
Like,
it's pretty glaring.
Yeah, and I like, listen, if a guy, he grades as a tackle, right, in this league.
Yeah.
And that means he would just be sitting behind, and waiting. I think he's a phenomenal player, but I just think that there's going to be some guys that are going to grade better as guards. What do you think about Joe Schoen and Brian Dable placing their future, their hopes, their dreams on Jackson Dart?
They're legally required to. Well, what do you sit back? You're gonna roll out Russell Wilson for the entire year, Jameis Winston? Like, the John Mara, the owner in New York, said pretty matter of factly that this is the last chance. Put a competent product on the football field, or you're out of a job. Is Russell Wilson going to be that guy? I mean, he's still got some nice touch on the deep ball, but I don't think that this is a guy who's capable of putting together a team that's somewhat all right.
The Falcons
Yeah,
traded
it's
up.
the Falcons that traded up next. Wow.
Interesting.
Wait.
Pass rusher.
Yeah,
Well, they took
100%.
Jalen Walker.
So they
Double
can go
down.
twice.
Yeah,
They can go
James
twice. They can go twice.
A Mike Green and a Jalen Walker. I'm curious to see what they gave up. Because
Who did they trade up with? The Rams, right?
Yes, but they moved up from pick number, if I had to guess, 46 to 26. That's 20 spots. You're giving up at least next year's second round pick.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, there had to be somebody on there that you saw. Then
I mean, best players on the board. I mean, wide receiver. I know they got Drake London.
no, it's. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they,
Yeah.
No, they're not going receiver.
no.
They've
all pass rush.
invested pick after pick into the offense. This is a draft for the defense. But
Let me
yeah,
see.
what do you guys think about the Dart pick?
I think that they were.
He was one of my favorite quarterbacks in this draft class. I like Jackson Dart. I think if he puts it all together, he's gonna be a very, very good player. I watched a lot of ball of his at Ole Miss. I thought he was a very good player. I think he's a winner. I think that it's going to be hard for him to beat out Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston in year one. But I also don't think that the Giants need to be forced in the situation where they rush a quarterback. But I think Jackson Dart wouldn't shock me if he was ready year one. It wouldn't shock me.
Oh yeah, when they're 1-5 in week 6, whenever the bye rolls around, yeah, you better bet that you're going to see Jackson Dart on the field with the jobs of Dable and Shane on the line.
Yeah. What if the Falcons came back up and they took Will Johnson though?
Ooh, to pair him up with AJ Terrell,
Mhm.
that would be. I think best play available. Yes. The only concern I would have with that is there are other cornerbacks I like a little bit later.
Traded 46, 242 in a first rounder in 2026.
Who?
A first rounder.
At 46, 242 in a first rounder in 2026 for the Rams pick at 26 and 101.
First rounder.
They got a
next
third back
year.
as well.
They got a third back,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this has to be, man. I don't know. Will Johnson, yeah. I don't know if I'm trading a first for Will at this point. Interesting. I'm curious to see who they go, because trading a first, we talk about, the Jacksonville Jaguars doing that to go up and get Travis Hunter. You're trading a first round pick next year to get a back end.
Well,
Mhm.
What?
Shadur Sanders.
It's a
Get another
Penix Jr.
quarterback.
Yeah.
Can't rule it out.
Wow. Okay. I'm curious to see who they end up taking here, but maybe they view one of these pass rushers as, hey, we're gonna build our defensive line in the future. Pair up Jalen Walker with a James Pierce. Pair him up with a Mike Green, because these guys were,
That would be deadly if they had those two guys as edge
Yeah.
rushers. Deadly.
and they were projected. I mean, James Pierce Jr. by a lot of people were saying, hey, this dude should be a top 15 player in this class.
Is 34-year-old Matt Judon still on the roster? He's still out there.
I think
kicking
he's
around.
a free agent.
I'm pretty
honestly,
sure he
yeah.
is. I think he
They
was on the
got-
last year of his deal when they traded for him, and then
So they signed Leonard Floyd. But besides that, it's looking steep. David Onyemata is defensive tackle. Ruka Roro is their starting defensive tackle.
Sound
Yeah.
like Chase Roro.
Roro. I mean, this.
you should just the sheer sack totals. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I wrote about it once, but they rattled off like 4 or 5 sacks. Like it was like 15 sacks in the last like 4 games of the year. But it was heinous. This pass rush. Like you could not blame them whatsoever for adding another defensive lineman here. It was one of the most criminal defensive linemen that has been trotted out onto an NFL football field in the last decade.
Mhm.
They could not get to the quarterback, and they had a streak that like kind of pulled them out of the basement down to the last month of the year, but it was truly a sight to see for the first 12 weeks of the year. It was really bad. I would not be shocked if the pick is Green or Pierce here. Pair him up with Walker and just kind of see what happens and kind of turn it over to some young guys. I'm really curious to see the name that comes up on the board here.
James Pierce Jr.
Wow.
James Pierce Jr.
I mean, they saw what was out on the field for the first 3 months of the year, and they said never again.
Yeah, I mean, but I think the cool thing is they get him, and they get him, and they pair him up with Jalen Walker. That pass rush is going to be a problem. But we talked about this today, and there was no way I didn't see him fall into the second. I know those were reports and stuff like that, but that guy is just too talented. He works on his hands. He's going to be a very good player. Here's something interesting. I'm going to make a bold prediction.
Yeah.
If Baltimore does not go Mike Green here, I'm willing to bet with you, Daniel, that the Washington Commanders select him here. I think Baltimore goes Will Johnson.
I wouldn't be shocked if he's off the board at Detroit before Washington, though.
Yeah,
Mike Green.
That's true.
Ooh.
That's true.
Detroit has been not so quietly looking for someone to pair with Aiden Hutchinson.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
I do like the. Let me look at the Commanders roster. I know the Commanders need a pass rusher.
I know he talked about. Remember, he's from that area. He's from the DMV. He talked about wanting to play.
Yeah,
there. And they showed a lot of interest in him too throughout the process.
Totally. And as I think more about this, the Falcons, and this is the theme, I think, you got a rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback. You're trying to win soon. And you're going in with the mindset, hey, we're giving up a first-round pick next year, but we view James Pierce Jr. as a top 10 player in this class. So if you're going to get a top 10 player for next year's first-round pick, it's a win. And you immediately solve your pass rush. The Falcons, I'm curious to see what they do with Kirk Cousins, if he's just going to stay and be their, backup quarterback. But you look at a division, respectfully, the Panthers aren't selling anybody. The Saints aren't selling anybody. The Buccaneers are good. This division's up for grabs. And if you're the Falcons, you've got to go out there and do it now. And good for James Pierce Jr. landing with the Falcons.
Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
You know what I think the Falcons do is they hang on to Kirk Cousins and they throw him out there against the Buccaneers. Just the 2 games of the year, because he lit them up for 70 combined points in the two games last year, 80 combined points. But in all seriousness, I do really like this move for the Falcons. Let me walk that back. I don't know if I love it, but it makes sense. Everything that they have done in the last 3 years is telling us we want to win now. They make significant investments into their offensive firepower. They give the big contract to Kirk Cousins. They follow that up with a backup plan for Kirk Cousins in case he doesn't work out. They have to go to that backup plan. But everything that this team has done in recent years is saying we want to win now. They recognize that the pass rush is just not where it needs to be for a team that is going to contend in the playoffs, for a team that is going to win the very winnable AFC South. So they make their Walker falls in their lap, and then they make a splashy move to, like you said, it's a player that it's not unfathomable that they view as a truly elite prospect in this class. So it completely checks out for what all the breadcrumbs that this organization has left behind over the last couple of years. Obviously, with investing, it was a top 10 pick in Michael Penix, if I'm not mistaken. It was number 8, top 15 pick, regardless. A high-end pick in Michael Penix last year. That they're prepared to push their chips into the middle and do what it takes. And this is that sort of move. They're coming for the NFC South. They're going to make a push, and we'll see if they get there. The tape on Penix is limited. The success track record of success is limited. So we'll see, but they're sure as hell going to try.
And let me say this, Alex, like, we got a lot of people. We appreciate you guys in the chat. He said, I came back because of the Giants trade, but I like what the Falcons are doing. Once again, we appreciate everybody in this chat. I just look at this, man, and I look at also a team like the Rams. You get another first-round pick.
One of these teams are about to steal Jahad Campbell.
Oh, that's right.
One of these teams is about to steal Jahad Campbell, and I have a feeling it could be the Ravens or the Bills, because the Bills have the whole Matt Milano situation.
A lot of these teams, Malik, there's talent on the board for these these contenders at the end. One last thing I think is important to note as well. This is something I've just kind of put my thought process as well. Put yourself in the shoes of Terry Fontenot, the GM of the Falcons. This could be your last year, right? Like, respectfully, if you don't win this year, your job's out. So as much and as crazy as it sounds, giving up a first-round pick, understand also this is their jobs on the line. So, hey, if I'm giving up a first-round pick next year, who knows if I'm even here next year? I'm going to go get a guy I believe can help my team win now. And if I'm heading into the next offseason with 2 cornerstone pass rushers, the quarterback that I drafted my future, and you end up winning, you're going to look like a absolute genius. He's betting on himself, so we'll see.
Yeah, it feels like the Ravens are going to take Starks or Will Johnson here. That's my bet.
Man.
Pick is in.
Yeah, we're going to find out very shortly.
Yeah, because they got Hamilton, but they got, I believe they still have
Malachi Starks, yep.
Wow.
That's who the pick is. Malachi Starks.
Him and Hamilton.
Wow, but whatchamacallit is still falling?
Who?
Will Johnson.
Will Johnson.
I mean,
Detroit.
You can really put that on like just the medicals.
But Detroit.
Yeah,
I know
Detroit.
they drafted
Arnold.
There's still going to be some
and
there's still going to be
Rackstraw.
some there's still going to be some pass rushers later in the draft for them to go after too. But man, Will Johnson would be very good here for them.
yeah.
Will Johnson would be very good here.
We said this is the Lions on the clock, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Baltimore still up, but they put in Starks.
So on the board is Mike Green, Jahad Campbell, Will Johnson. So Luther Bird is probably no. Donovan Ezuraku is fascinating. I believe he's somebody I could see them end up taking. More of that productive, stronger, strong hands, pass rusher, Nick Scorton as well. There's a lot of these good guys still on the board. Yeah, we'll see who they end up going. I'm curious to see these other teams, like the Chiefs and the Eagles. I wonder if the Chiefs will end up going with, maybe they end up going running back, or if they go, Trey Amos. But the cornerbacks, I will say right now, we haven't had a cornerback take besides Jahdae Barron. But the cornerbacks in round 2, I believe some of these teams are going to get some very good guys, right? Rebels on the board, Amos on the board, Morrison, Hairston. If a team wants a cornerback in round 2, I believe they're going to be really, really happy.
Someone in the chat just asked if Detroit or Washington called and offer their first for Trey. And since you could take Green, what would the reaction be? I would be jumping for joy. Get me a bottle of champagne. We're popping that down here. But that's all hypothetical. Obviously, you're giving up Trey for a first for an opportunity to draft Mike Green. But what you were saying there, Daniel, one pick that stands out to me, if Simmons falls into the lap of Kansas City. I know like a lot of these guys, that's like the one place we don't have insight really, is how these medicals come back for some of these injured guys like a Morrison, like a Will Johnson, like a Josh Simmons. So we don't really know kind of what that looks like. But I mean, the offensive line lost the Chiefs the Super Bowl last year. So if it wasn't for that patella injury for Simmons, he could have easily been the top tackle in this draft, just how he looked last year at Ohio State. So I wouldn't be shocked if they take a guy who they know has an elite ceiling if he's healthy. But yeah, like you said, there is going to be multiple cornerback talents here at the back end of round 1 and the top of round 2.
Can I be honest with you all though for a second? I'm very. I know they got Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks is a good player. He's a ball hawk and safety, and the Ravens are used to having that, right? Ed Reed, they've got a very good safety right now, and Kyle Hamilton, and those are two good picks, two good safety tandems from them. But part of me is very grateful they didn't get the services of Will Johnson and the services of Mike Green, honestly, because I've seen Burrow go up against some elite corners. All right, I've seen him do very, very well against some elite corners, especially they need to do something to kind of counteract that receiving core that Cincinnati does have. They went out and added Malachi Starks, very good pick for them. But I think Will Johnson's going to be a very, very good player in the National Football League. And I think Mike Green really can replicate the same success he had at Marshall to the National Football League. I'm just grateful he wasn't able to do it in the AFC North. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think the Bengals faded a lot of those scary talents.
Yeah,
Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter.
Yeah,
the in terms of the other teams in the AFC North loading up, I think the Bengals were in a very, very good spot in this draft class, considering it looked like Cleveland could get either of those two.
Yeah.
Just truly blue chip prospects. So yeah, I think if you're rooting against the other teams in the AFC North, things went according to plan. If you're a Bengals fan.
Oh yeah. You got to feel good. So what do we think? What do we think the next few picks are? I feel like it's gonna be hard for Detroit to pass up on Will Johnson. I feel like that. That's probably a top 10 pick if he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah,
That's probably a top 10 pick.
I think best player available is probably Will Johnson. It's Will Johnson, or if they want to go need, you go pass rusher.
But there's a reason why Mike Green is balling.
Totally,
And,
you know?
totally.
You draft Terrion Arnold in the first round last year. You shell out big bucks for DJ Reed. So there's all the reason in the world to pass on Johnson. But yeah, it's and then again, it's
and
it's hard to pass up on the
Detroit.
best player available.
Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to pass up on the best player available. But if there's a team with the reasons to pass on Will Johnson and because of the investments they've made at the position, it's probably the Detroit Lions, and their just biggest need is probably on the defensive side of the ball, probably a pass rusher. So we'll see here. There's multiple justifiable picks at pass rusher. Obviously Johnson likely being the best player on the board. So I'm still going to go with they're going to go with a pass rusher. Like I said before, they have been pretty clear about being interested in adding someone alongside Aiden Hutchinson. And I really do think if you told Lions fans, the Lions front office, that Mike Green was going to be there at number 27 or at number 28. Obviously, we don't know what's going on completely behind closed doors with the off the field stuff, and that could be what's really driving this fall down the board. But I really do think they add a pass rusher here.
Yeah, and these guys are good. I think some of these teams, Nick Scorton, Donovan Ezuraku, and Mike Green, I think are all three phenomenal pass
All
rushers.
justifiable.
If I had to guess, I think that I don't know if they could shock, but I think that there's a chance they could go Scorton. I'm curious to see where the NFL views Nick Scorton, but I think just, from speaking with him at the combine, he's one of the guys where like one of the guys real quick, like high character, loves the game of football. Teammates raved about him. Opponents raved about him. He would probably, he just feels like a Detroit Lions pick, but
What if they didn't do any of that?
Luther Burden,
What if they didn't do that?
who could they go? Huh.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Interesting. I like this
What
game.
if they went a defensive tackle?
Omar? Little big hands
Ohio
Omar
State.
Norman.
What if they went Ohio State?
Tyleek Williams?
Yeah. What if they
Stuff
did
A
that?
little
Ron.
Tyleek Williams. He's one of my favorite players in this class. I love if they were to go Tyleek Williams, I would love that for them. Obviously, I'm not a Lions fan, but that's
shocking.
what
That's just shocking to me.
he is. Man, he's one of the guys. Obviously, if we're talking Bengals need interior pass rushers. But Tyleek Williams, if we talk about a guy once again that they would love, captain, a guy who played in the biggest games, a guy who just is a stout run defender. We talk about somebody who was able to stack and shed in the run game. His pass rush, it leaves so much to be desired, I'll be honest. But when you look at the games, go back to the Michigan game, look at the Notre Dame game, look at the playoff run that Ohio State had. Go back to even last year, the teams that they faced. Go look at that Michigan game from last year. Tyleek Williams was the guy on their interior defensive line. He was their run stuffer. He was their third and short. He was their fourth and short. He is a damn good football player, and he's somebody where, like I said, he may not have the pass rushing upside of a Walter Nolan, but he's one of the first guys I watched from this class, and I fell in love with him because his floor is extremely high. So I'm guessing that's where
I'm very shocked the Lions didn't go Will Johnson here, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm very shocked. And you know what's crazy?
Wow.
The way this draft is shaping up, Howie Roseman might just do what Howie Roseman does.
I'm gonna be
What,
sick.
Sit and grab the
I'm gonna be
faller.
sick.
Sit and grab the most talented faller.
But there's something to be said about not overcomplicating the process.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if a Jahad Campbell falls to them?
Oh, I think he will.
I think the Bills are.
Oh, fair. The Bills are here. Well, the Bills
The
The
Bills
Bills
need
are
a
going to
difference.
grab a corner. No,
Well, they just re-signed Trey. Obviously, 1 year. They just re-signed Trey White.
I think we're done with Trey White. as a legitimate like player in the NFL.
For sure.
Yeah.
Huh. Wait, so we got Commanders, then Bills,
Yeah.
and then Chiefs, Eagles. Okay. Who are we debating? We said Mike Green.
I think
Jahad
Mike
Campbell.
Green. Here's my prediction. And again, I think Mike Green goes to the Commanders. I think Buffalo takes Jahad Campbell. KC and Philly.
Buffalo should take Will, or
Yeah, they should take Will Johnson.
They should take Will Johnson.
but will they? Fair.
But will they? If not, he's going to fall into.
Who does
gonna fall
KC
into-
go to? Who does they go?
They might go Will Johnson. They might go Will Johnson.
Because they have
They have the young corner. I forgot his name. Is
not Snead. Yep, they got I know, yeah.
Snead's no
Oh
longer
my
there.
God.
No, not Snead,
Yeah.
but
None of us can remember
this is
guy's
terrible.
name. He just moved into the slot last year. Trent
McDuffie,
McDuffie.
yeah.
Trent McDuffie.
Yep.
but they
Some
also
draft
have,
coverage were provided.
Yeah.
They signed Christian Fulton.
Come
obviously.
on. Yeah.
He's fast.
I wonder. Nicky Manwari's falling. I wonder where he's gonna go. I wonder if he'll be there day 2.
Philly. I mean, Philly won't go him probably.
It's hard to
Well,
say.
who does Philly?
Wait,
lose?
Buffalo might go Nick
Yeah,
Emanwari.
Mookie's guy.
Buffalo might go Nick Emanwari. But will they pass up on Will Johnson or Jahad Campbell? Can't see that. Nick Emanwari is not that great.
But would he go to Philly?
No, they got their shape. Wait, don't they have their safeties kind of figured out?
No, because they were. I think about they were.
Who
Thinking
was
about,
Philly's corners?
They got. They just drafted both dudes this year.
Yeah, DeJean and
Cooper
Quinyon
DeJean.
Mitchell.
Is Will Johnson better than Nick
They need
Cooper?
another outside corner.
Yeah, I would do that. I would go Will
DeJean
Johnson.
plays out of the slot. I don't think they signed anyone. I
Somebody
can't
said
remember.
KC going Simmons for
Oh
OSU.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
going to tackle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Connerly.
Connerly or Simmons. Like I've been saying, it's hard to know what these like medical checks are looking like. But when healthy, Simmons was arguably the best tackle in football or in college football last year. Connerly, another quality prospect. If you just don't want to bet on the injury status of Simmons, but the offensive line lost them the Super Bowl last year. They had to play Joe Tooney at tackle, and he played admirably at tackle, but he's not even there. Like he's a guard, he's a backup plan, and that was what they were leaning on down the stretch last year. And he's not even there anymore. Obviously, with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, you have the interior pretty much shored up, but the tackle situation is criminal. It is truly criminal. They swung on that guy in the second round last year. I can't remember his name, but the Chiefs.
Oh, Kingsley Sumatai.
Yeah. They threw him out there last year, and he was just he was a turnstile out there, just an absolute mess. I do think it's offensive line here for the Chiefs in a couple picks.
Can I throw something out there? I don't know
Sure.
if the Eagles will end up doing this. I think that their wide receiver tight end could be a move for them here. I don't know if tight end, obviously we saw the whole Mason Taylor. His odds were even odds to go in the first round. Would it be shocking if Luther Burden went here? I know we got AJ Brown. I know Devontae Smith. Both those guys are locked in. John Dotson's your wide receiver 3. And this is a team who's consistently gone best player available. I no doubt in my mind, Luther Burden is one of the top 3 best players available. I'm curious to see where it ends up. Eagles have so many options that they could go. They could go Nick Manwari, safety, because they only have Reed Blankenship, and I think that's it. Could go Will Johnson. I would just be curious to see what the shout is, because Goddard's on the last year of his contract in trade rumors. Curious to see if they would end up getting a Mason Taylor or Luther Burden, but I'm curious to see where they end up going. But real quick,
Chris Sims loves this pick for the Bengals. He says, and I quote, Shamar Stewart chance to be superstar. Disruption is production. My full thoughts on Shamar Stewart, his number 2 edge in the entire class. That's why we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about Shamar Stewart. We're gonna have a lot of time to talk about it. The pick is in for the Washington Commanders. Pick is in.
Dane Brugler likes him too. I know that.
Shamar?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, he dominated at the Senior Bowl. He dominated like it was bad. He had offensive linemen falling on their ass, and he talked about how he wasn't really asked. He was asked to do specific stuff at Texas A&M. Now, could that be a cover for the lack of production? I don't know, but Commanders take Josh Connerly.
Beefing up.
Yeah. Okay, so they don't. The Mike Green slide.
Yeah, man.
The Mike Green slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, Connerly, but okay, I respect it. I mean, they got Jaden Daniels, but they just traded for Laramie Tunsil. I guess they're beefing up the offensive line and saying,
What if Kansas City went Mike Green?
Stop it.
What if Kansas City went Mike Green?
Stop it, Malik. I don't want that.
What if they did that?
What does Evan say? Don't wish that evil upon me.
Listen,
man.
I would be shocked if Buffalo or KC didn't draft Jihad Campbell or Will Johnson in the next 2 picks.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah. I bet you Buffalo picks up one of them. Yeah.
So Kansas City has, I know
it's
that
still hard for me to see Kansas City going anything other than Simmons.
That's fair.
You know what's crazy? Looking at the board in the second round, Cleveland has the first pick in the second round, and they turn right back around and they have the 4th pick. What if Cleveland went Shedeur Sanders in the first pick in the second round? Because he's going to go early. Yeah. And then they follow back around if Mike Green was on the board and they said, you know what, we're going to pair him up with Myles Garrett.
Phenomenal.
That would be insane.
Phenomenal.
That would be insane.
And that's where, like, and let me just get this out there. I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on Shedeur Sanders. I believe he's a franchise quarterback. And I do think that he's going to go to a team. If it's the Browns, I do think that he's going to have a successful NFL career. So the fact that he's gone this deep into it, I'm whoever selects him is going to not have a negative grade in my book, because I believe that he's got the potential to be a franchise quarterback. And when we look at the rest of the quarterbacks, this class wasn't great. They weren't. The Giants traded up at the back into round 1 for Jackson Dart. So
I think at this point, I'm by no means a believer in Shedeur Sanders, but we're getting to the point where unless a trade happens, Shedeur Sanders is going to be a second-round pick. And that is, in my book, more than okay, more than justifiable. I mean, we've seen arguably more questionable talents go earlier just because of the positional value of quarterback. And I don't think it was the right move, but in my book, picking up Shedeur Sanders in the top 10 picks was justifiable because of the number, or just because of the value of the position. So at this point, like I think if whoever ends up picking up Sanders, I think it's a good pick at that rate. And like I said, I don't think the ceiling is super high with Sanders. I think he has a solid floor. He does all the basics: timing, rhythm, accuracy, works through his progressions. Pocket awareness is questionable, but at this rate, with the fact that he's likely going to be a second-round pick, I mean, it's for a quarterback needy team, it's a good pick.
Completely. So we got 3 teams left. I'm curious to see where Buffalo ends up. They've got these teams. They've got talent on the board, man. They're Nick Minwari, Maxwell Harrison. I don't know if he'll end up going here, but the Bills, I think that they've got a lot of holes on their team too. We talked about corner. They've got some holes. You know, linebacker could definitely be a hole. Offensive line, maybe, sure, but I would be kind of penciling in as secondary. Real quick, once again, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe for full content. Looking at this, board as it's shaping out for round 2, for these teams, whether it is the Cincinnati Bengals or other teams, there's these guys that are falling, man. And I think a Will Johnson is good news for teams that are looking for cornerbacks, right? Whether it's a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, if they want to go outside of offensive line, you got Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, Revel, Harrison, and Darian Porter, who I think all of these guys could be starting caliber corners. People are going to have their pick of these corners. So if there's teams that like cornerbacks in round 2, they're going to have their pick of these guys. So I think cornerback is a very strong group. Offensive line is kind of not getting fully scarce, but these guys are going quick. And especially if the Kansas City Chiefs end up taking a Josh Simmons.
Or what's the guy out of Minnesota?
Ariante Ursary.
Yeah.
It's going to be, the way the board is shaping up, especially for the Bengals, man. If you want an offensive lineman, it is looking like you might have to go round 2 if we're talking about starting caliber offensive lineman.
You have to.
Because like Ratledge at this point, Jonah, are they going to be the round 3? Probably they might not be. And you can't, especially now, you can't take a chance on. We'll just wait till round 3, especially a spot where you're saying, hey, we know there's a hole for our starting offensive line spot. I think you're kind of penciling it yourself in and saying, hey, Jonah, Tate, Ursary, one of these guys, Milam, if one of these guys falls, we'll have them here, and they'll be the pick at round 2. But looking at the Bills, man, I think that the rest of these guys, I'm curious to see how far Mike Green ends up falling because he is one of the best pure pass rushers in this entire class. But the top of these guys, Donovan Ezra is still here, Luther Burden's still here, Kevin Winston Jr., Omar Norman Lott is a fun one who I'm really a big fan of from the interior defensive line. But we'll see where the Buffalo Bills end up going here.
What I'm looking most forward to tomorrow is the run of running backs.
Yeah.
It's going to start with those Ohio State guys, and then there's several running backs you can justify taking on day 2. I think there's a legitimate chance that we see like it's not a question of if, it's a question of when that slide of running backs begins. Who's going to pull the trigger first? Because I mean, there's no reason that you can't draft a running back in day 2, day 3 these days in the NFL. Just constantly churning, putting in putting more talent into the backfield. But I guess we can turn to this conversation towards the Bengals a little bit. Obviously, the Bengals coming into the draft were one of those teams. Do they add a guy day 3? I think for the most part, the idea was kind of day 3. But with Zach Moss, do you think running backs will be highlighted on the Bengals draft board at this point?
No, I don't think so. And I think the way this is looking, once again, if you guys are watching, drop down your guys' predictions for round 2, a guy you'd like to see your team draft. No, I don't think so, Mike. I think the fact that you have Moss, you got Chase Brown,
brought back P. Ryan.
You brought back P. Ryan. I think at most they'll spend a day 3 pick on it, but it would be a very big misuse of your assets if you go after a running back in day 2, especially with the hole you kind of put yourself in that offensive line. But let me just say this, these guys, Mike, a guy that I'm going to put my stamp on, we've kind of talked about on the show. I think Cam Scatterbo, wherever he goes in round 2 or round 3, this dude is going to be, these running backs are going to be productive, man. And I think Cam Scatterbo's one that I'm curious to see where he goes, but he's an immediate 1,000+ yard scrimmage guy for me. And these guys, they're all going to have their chances, whether it's, Maxwell Harrison. Wow.
Maxwell Harrison getting drafted.
We talked about this.
I think he sucks.
Yeah.
What are you on a 4.2 or
4.28?
Yeah.
4.2. Yeah. I mean, I respect he played in SC, but he sucked. I know our Kentucky guy, Jimmy. Do you think he sucked? I think he's garbage. That's just me though. Got beat a lot. His athleticism saved him. What do you think about him, Daniel?
I think, and I'm just excited because I know we talked about this.
All fast, no technique
with Mookie. This is what the Bills need, though, and I think that they win.
Yeah, they're gonna get destroyed still.
Well, yes, but I think when you look at where they're approaching this, is they're looking at, hey, how did we fail last year?
Yeah,
Kyrie Elam was their problem. The fact that their cornerbacks were hurt was their problem. Is Maxwell Harrison going to fix it? Maybe not, but he's the speed who matches up with Xavier Worthy. He matches up with any of these speedsters. So I think that they reach a little bit for need with Will Johnson on the board, with Revel on the board, with Morrison on the board. I think that this is a reach for need, but he goes to the Bills and he fills a need for them. So
somebody said John Ross of cornerbacks. It's actually great. Mike, what do you think of this pick?
Wait, real quick. I think KC traded.
Yeah, they traded with
Philly and KC flip-flop picks here. Where my mind went was, what does this say about the health of Will Johnson?
Yes.
It must have gone very, very poorly with check-ins with the medical staffs and the doctors. Because I know it was, even before he got hurt, it was a little bit more of a down year, but you'd think what he did in 2023 would be enough to get him into the first round, get him ahead of a guy like Maxwell Harrison. So I don't know. That's kind of where my mind went. I don't have much to say about the quality of this pick in general. My mind went straight to Johnson and wondering what's up with him. But this pick, I've been saying it for the last 3 picks. This is straightforward to me. You whiff on Kaiir Elam. You trade him to, I believe, Dallas. You re-sign Benford, but it's still a clear and obvious need for the secondary. in the AFC Championship or one of the playoff games when Benford wasn't there. It wasn't very pretty. So this is a clear and obvious need for this defense, and it might be a reach based on need, like you said, Daniel, but it's a need at a minimum.
And the Eagles selected Jihad Campbell.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, that's who they're going with.
Go with
Eagles
the
going
faller.
Jihad Campbell.
They
Let's go with
always
most
get
talented
these guys,
faller.
man.
They always get away with it. But I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You know,
But
linebackers. If you pinpoint one weakness on the Eagles, is there a place that could get better?
Who was supposed to be alongside Bond?
well, they got
N'Kobe Dean, but he's been dealing with
Yeah.
injury. He's been injured
Yeah.
twice now, and so like
Yeah,
Depth
they had
doesn't
Oren
even
Burks
matter
playing down
for
the
them.
stretch.
or Oren Burks is
Bengals
now in
legend Oren
Cincinnati,
Burks.
and now Jihad Campbell is now an Eagle.
Yeah.
And how he does it again, at least presumably he does it again. If Jihad Campbell's medicals check out and he can get healthy, that's a good pick. That's a good pick for them.
good for
good pick.
them, man.
It's a good pick. Good pick for the Eagles. Good pick for Eagles fans. Eagles fans should feel happy about that.
The NFL aggregator accounts have already tweeted out how he's done it again. Don't you worry, Malik.
Oh my god.
He has done it again.
Oh
How-
god. Well, you call me an aggregator? I'm not an aggregator.
No.
Oh.
I'm saying the accounts out there that they're already declaring that he's done it again.
So where do we think the Chiefs go here?
I think you know what I think. I think they're going with Simmons or the guy out of Minnesota. Tackle.
Okay. Around Terrace. That's what you're talking about? Around
Yeah,
Terrace?
yeah.
Okay. If they go around Terrace, that would be certainly an interesting choice. That spot, especially considering some of the names that are on the board. Yeah, Danny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it seems probably too straightforward. I do think that Simmons is probably the pick. I think that they should look to upgrade their interior defensive line this draft. To pair with Chris Jones, I would be looking. And this is too rich for him. If they don't go offensive line, I do think Omar Norman-Lott would be a phenomenal fit next to Chris Jones. The rest of these guys, I mean, Mike Green's one of the best players on the board. The Chiefs have never really cared about personal concerns for a lot of these guys, whether it's, Tyreek Hill or a lot of these guys, like pretty much a lot of these guys, they say, hey, talent, and they believe in the culture that they have and say, hey, we will work on whatever you got going on outside of football. If you got the talent, we'll make it work.
Mhm.
It would be kind of a Chiefs pick if they went Mike Green, but their biggest need by far and away is the offensive line. And Josh Simmons is far and away, I would say, the best offensive lineman left on the board.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, they could end up going cornerback, sure. That's if we're talking best player available, Will Johnson. I mean, but I do think that Josh Simmons will probably end up being the pick. But the rest of these guys, I mean, now that we're final pick, some of these guys have fallen. Like I said, Luther Burden, Mike Green, Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Nick Scorton. Those are probably the biggest names that have fallen. But all around, I think that a lot of these teams, especially the back end, these teams got better, man. And all these contenders, I think that they all got better. I don't know if there was any crazy shocking pick in this back end, but look at the rest of these guys. I mean, we talked about it, but Emeka Buka was probably one of the more shocking picks, like unexpected positions.
Yep.
Same thing with the Broncos going Janae Barron.
Yeah.
But
You get why.
You totally understand why.
Out of these fallers, though, I mean, out of the guys that are notable, most significantly Johnson and Mike Green, I mean, you can point the finger to why. Like, it's not very hard to kind of think through and realize why they might be falling. But like there were shocking picks throughout the draft, but with the names that are left on the board, it's not a big shock to me. One of the names that you brought up, Luther Burden, the opinions are very, very mixed on him. But all the reports and kind of just what the buzz was is that he was going to make it to round 2. And it's really a question of like, cause a lot of it, his role was gadgety, at Missouri. A lot of his yak came from targets behind the line of scrimmage. Just a bevy of those screen targets, really only playing out of the slot. A really, really high amount of his production came out of the slot. So it's a question of whether you think that's who he is as a player, or that's what he was asked to do in Missouri, and whether the fact that the lackluster, I mean, you could even call it defunct at times, Missouri offense was impacting him this season, because the drop off from, what was it, 1,300 yards as a sophomore to 600 yards this year, pretty shocking, and not what you'd expect out of what he was perceived to be as a talent back then. So there's people out there who believe his skill set can transition. There's some people who believe he'll be really scheme dependent. But based on all the buzz out there, I'm not entirely shocked to see him available when day 2 picks up. I mean, I guess there's a world where the Chiefs grab him here. I don't see that world. I don't live in that world, but that'll be an interesting name to see if anyone kind of fights for him and picks him up, because there are a lot of teams at the top of the draft order who could use a receiver here tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, evening.
Yeah, I mean, and just looking at the rest of these guys, just kind of projecting to day 2, there's going to be some of these guys, and I think the frustrating part, Donovan Ezraku, Nick Gordon, Mike Green, 3 phenomenal edge rushers are still on the board. That leaves a lot of these other second-tier guys that are going to be available late round 2, early round 3, like Landon Jackson, Princely. So when I look at the strength of day 2, it is going to be, and if we're talking whether it's the Bengals or these other teams, I think offensive line is going very quickly. And the rest of this is, if we're talking Bengals too, I think Xavier Watts is another one that it's going to be tough, especially where you're penciling yourself in, say, hey, we have to probably go offensive line. But if Xavier Watts is staring at you, you put yourself in this position. So there's a lot of these talented guys. I'm excited to see where they go round 2, round 3. So offensive line, solid. Tight end, there's still a couple of these guys left, but we'll see.
Yeah, you don't have to connect the dots. You don't have to. It's pretty easy to put pen to paper, connect the dots for Watts to the Bengals with Al Golden in the building now. I would like them to see. I don't think they're going to be in a position to draft Xavier Watts. I don't think he makes it to them in round 3. I don't think that's the best use of their second round pick. Yep. Is on Xavier Watts. I would much rather see the name Tate Ratledge penciled in next to the Bengals in round 2, just given the glaring need at offensive guard, and just having seen poor guard play year in and year out with Joe Burrow facing pressure up the middle. Chris Jones will always live in my nightmares as a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Obviously, you're basically never going to be able to neutralize Chris Jones, but putting some precautions in place would help me sleep better at night. So we'll see what name comes off the board for the Cincinnati Bengals here in round 2. But yeah, I don't know. You can see why they'd be interested in Watt, but I just don't think that that's the best use of draft capital, and I'd imagine that you would agree as well. But one name, and kind of going back to the running backs, I am really excited to see where Travion Henderson lands. He was one of the very, very late guys who caught some steam. By the time the draft rolled around tonight, he was, I believe, minus 160, so heavily favored to come off the board in the first round. The way things shake out, the Broncos don't really take a running back, which was kind of one of the bigger shocks. But given the depth of this class, like you mentioned earlier, they can address that need later in the draft.
Chiefs took Simmons.
Yep. Yeah, that's an easy one for the Chiefs. Like I said before, healthy, he's arguably the most talented tackle in this draft. The most obvious need. The best player available was undoubtedly Will Johnson, like we've talked about. Don't know where he sits health-wise, but it's the same question with Simmons. And when two guys have questions about their health, I think it's pretty easy. The tiebreaker is somewhere that's a clear and obvious need, and that is offensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. They've made significant financial investments into the interior of the offensive line. putting a franchise tag, somewhat surprisingly, on Trey Smith,
Yeah.
paying Creed Humphrey the big bucks to be their center for the foreseeable future. But they have to get cheap talent on the offensive line. They'll be doing just that by picking up Simmons at number 32, and I wouldn't be shocked if they're not done adding to their offensive line depth and looking for someone on day 2 and day 3.
Well, listen, that is the end of our draft coverage for today. I mean, we still got some names on the board still for the Bengals. Mike Green still out there. Will Johnson, another cornerback that's still out there. Xavier Watts is still out there. Let me ask you a quick question, though, guys.
Yeah.
If the Bengals go into this draft thinking that they need to find a safety of the future, because I do think there's a world in which Xavier Watts is there at 49.
Yeah.
Man, that's gonna be tough to pass up on.
Fair.
That's gonna be tough to pass up on.
Fair.
If you're talking about getting a playmaker, a true difference maker at the safety spot. And I'm sure we'll continue these conversations as we go into it. But if it comes down to a Tate Ratledge and Xavier Watts, I feel like that's gonna be a conversation to be had there. Man,
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, real quick, if I touch on it. If I were to pencil in and if I were to predict 2 ways it goes, I do think it's offensive line, safety, offensive line. One or the other. I think in the names
You're saying 2 safeties?
No,
Oh,
it's either
sorry.
offensive line then safety or safety then offensive line. The only safety I'm taking around 2 is Xavier Watts. If it's Watts, then in round 3 you're banking on Wyatt Milan being there or Jared Wilson.
Or maybe you somehow can get another pick.
Trade
I don't know
back.
what that looks like, but maybe
Mhm.
there's a world. Anyway, that's all the time that we got for tonight, guys. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning into TWSN's live draft stream coverage. We'll be back tomorrow for round 2 and 3, breaking it all down, talking it all through. Special thanks to Jimmy, Marissa, Mike, Daniel for all hanging with us on the stream. I know not a lot of people are excited about this pick that the Bengals made in round 1, but there are some positives to take away from it. If he can truly develop in his finishing ability, I thought Al Golden's quote about him was very interesting. He said, he loves the way he finishes. And I'm like, that's the knock on him. He doesn't finish as often as he should. But if he's able to put that all together, man, I think it's going to be very, very special. I think we're going to see the run on Shador tomorrow. I think we'll see Jalen Milroe go tomorrow. I think we'll see the run on running backs tomorrow. Luther Burden is still sitting out there as well. So we still have a lot of stuff to look forward to. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning into this draft coverage. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content. We want to thank y'all so much, and we will see y'all tomorrow for night 2 of NFL draft.